Chapter 1635. Death. Qi Jin was dead. He hadn't died at Lin Feng's hands, but at his own. He had used up all his strength and used a secret technique to devour all his life force. But Qi Jin didn't regret it. He knew that he would die if he continued fighting. Only this way could he take Lin Feng down with him. But what he never expected was that Lin Feng hadn't used his full strength. Pa! Pa! The flames around his body instantly disappeared, and his charred skin quickly recovered. Lin Feng's recovery ability was terrifying. The power of heaven and earth had an extremely strong regenerative ability. Lin Feng's body was the strongest in the battle spirit world. In fact, with Lin Feng's strength, extinguishing the flames was just a matter of thought. His power of heaven and earth was very abundant. The reason why he didn't extinguish the flames and let them burn his body was to confuse Qi Jin and give him an illusion. He couldn't resist his flames. When Qi Jin was in a desperate situation, he would use his innate ability, sun-swallowing heavenly dog, to suck himself into the Skyfire space. If he was an ordinary demon king, he would have killed him. However, Qi Jin was still useful to him. His Skyfire space contained endless Skyfire. The devouring flames and the flames of rebirth have both reached the 89th level. Although I've had a good encounter, it's difficult to increase their levels. I hope I can cross the last threshold in the Skyfire space. Let my main body's flames reach the starry sky level. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, but his heart was still the same. Qi Jin didn't see an illusion. He did absorb Lin Feng at the last moment before his death, but it was his main body, Lin Feng, and not his avatar Lin Feng. Deliberately entering the Skyfire space was Lin Feng's plan. It just so happened that Qi Jin was the vice-marshal of the attack on the Divine Realm. Otherwise, his main body would have to wait until the next time to enter. Then, he would have to give up on fighting on the battlefield. If they wanted to fight on the battlefield, they wouldn't be able to enter the Heavenly Flame space. It must be known that although the Celestial Dog clan had many clansmen, in terms of the level of Heavenly Flame, the size of the Heavenly Flame space, and the purity of Heavenly Flame, Qi Jin was the undisputed number one. If he couldn't break through in his Heavenly Fire space, there was no need to mention the other Heavenly Fire spaces. Thank you, Qi Jin. You left me a fortuitous encounter before you died. Lin Feng smiled calmly. The World Annihilation Spear appeared in his hand, and he once again entered the battle. Even though he had just killed a demon king, to Lin Feng, it was just a casual matter. Back then, a young celestial dog could crush Lin Feng. Now, even the demon king of the celestial dog race was like a puppy in front of Lin Feng. There was a huge disparity in strength. Behind the demon race army, the Blood Tiger Emperor, who was overseeing the battle, had a grave expression on his face. He was furious, and his claws shone with a cold light. If the demon race army was previously suppressed because they were caught off guard and ambushed, then with the passage of time, the demon race should be able to turn the situation around bit by bit. However, this was not the case. He saw the demon race retreating in defeat as they wailed in agony. They were completely suppressed by the human army. The doubts in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Were humans really that strong? The human army alone was able to suppress the demon clan? Clenching his teeth, the Blood Tiger Emperor did not personally take action. After all, he was the commander of the army. Moreover, Demon King Qi Jin had already taken action. The Blood Tiger Emperor believed that Qi Jin would soon turn the situation around, but the result was, Qi Jin was dead. How could this be? Standing up, Kuei Tianyuan's huge body exuded a terrifying pressure. The word king on his forehead clearly symbolized his identity and status. Kuei Tianyuan's body seemed to be stained with blood as he gritted his teeth. His teeth were grinding, and a terrifying power was released from his body. The news might be wrong, but his aura could not be wrong. Qi Jin's aura had disappeared. In the distance there was a looming aura. Although it was not clear, it was the only aura that could kill Qi Jin. That was Lin Feng. I was careless in the previous battle. Kuei Tianyuan gritted his teeth. He had fought with Lin Feng before. That day, Kuei Tianyuan was shocked by Lin Feng's strength. In the end, he gave up and the victor was not decided. However, after returning to the demon race, Kuei Tianyuan carefully recalled the battle with Lin Feng. He realized that he had made a mistake and was used by Lin Feng. Lin Feng's speed was indeed terrifying. However, that was because he had used Space Shatter, which allowed Lin Feng's speed to be unrestricted. However, if he did not use Space Shatter, Lin Feng could only use Extreme Speed. To him, Lin Feng was not invincible. Lin Feng's strength was actually not stronger than his. Even if Lin Feng's speed was 10 times faster than his, he was still unable to kill him. Hesitation. Kuei Tianyuan looked into the distance and was extremely hesitant. Logically speaking, he should avenge Qi Jin's death and personally deal with Lin Feng. Furthermore, Lin Feng's aura was faintly discernible at this moment. It seemed that he was injured. However, Kuei Tianyuan pursed his lips and hesitated. His intuition told him that this was another trap. This human Lin Feng was more terrifying than he had imagined. He could not see the bottom of this bottomless pit. It seemed that he could kill Lin Feng every time, but Lin Feng always had a way to get out of this predicament. Such an enemy seemed to be blessed by the heavens and was very difficult to deal with. Even if he could kill Lin Feng, he would have to pay a high price. And if he could not kill Lin Feng, then the one who would die would very likely be him. Gamble? Or not? Kuei Tianyuan floated up and looked down at the battlefield from above. He saw a large number of divine beasts and ferocious beasts. The human army had split into 3 groups and charged straight in, tearing apart the demon race's defense. His frown deepened. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His expression was cold as he fell into deep thought. One wrong move and the whole game would be lost. For Kuei Tianyuan, he had to make a choice. And his choice was Kuei Zhen. Kuei Tianyuan bellowed, the confusion in his eyes already burning brightly. Here. Kuei Tianyuan was full of fighting spirit. He was ready to fight on the battlefield as soon as Blood Tiger Emperor gave the order. Pass down the order. Kuei Tianyuan dragged out the word. He sighed in his heart and said in a deep voice, "Sound the drums and retreat. We will fight another day." His voice was cold and calm. It was unquestionable, but it was so unexpected that Kuei Zhen did not react for a long time. Retreat? What a joke! The demon race's army was defeated by the humans just like that? Even if the demon race was at a disadvantage, the war had just begun. It was the same in the previous war with the ancient race. They were suppressed by the ancient race again and again, but the demon race was the one who had the last laugh. This was because the demon race had absolute numbers and strength. They could exhaust their opponents to death. However, this time, they admitted defeat just like that? Kuei Zhen's face turned pale. What's wrong? Kuei Tianyuan looked at Kuei Zhen, who was silent for a long time, and asked in a deep voice. I don't understand. Kuei Zhen clenched his fists and said with gritted teeth. Who do you think you are? Why should I explain it to you? Kuei Tianyuan's voice was calm, but there was a hint of arrogance and anger in it. Kuei Zhen shuddered as he looked at Kuei Tianyuan coldly. He immediately gave in and said, I understand. Whoosh! Kuei Zhen's figure disappeared instantly. Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was the commander of the army. His orders were absolute, and there was no room for objection. Retreat. To Kuei Tianyuan, this might be a difficult decision to make. However, he still chose to retreat in the end. On one hand, he did not dare to take the risk. He did not want to take the risk. His previous defeat was still vivid in his mind. Kuei Tianyuan was unsure of Lin Feng's strength. Facing such an opponent, Kuei Tianyuan cleverly chose to retreat. After all, even if the sky fell, there was someone tall to hold it up. He did not need to fight to the death with Lin Feng now. The demon race's army was unstoppable. Wouldn't it be easier to go to the ancient eastern region and the ancient western region first, and then gather the strength of the three armies and personally deal with Lin Feng with the commander of the demon race as the leader? With the absolute advantage, there was no need for him to take the risk. Anyway, he had already lost face when he was defeated by Lin Feng previously. It was not a big deal to lose face again. Kuei Tianyuan was already a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. So be it if he retreated. War was not a battle. There was no need to fight over the length of a day. They won? The human army was also stunned as they watched the demon race retreat in panic. The demon race was a tough nut to crack, especially when their numbers were unbelievably large. The human army had to pay a high price to kill the demon race. However, the battle had just begun, and the demon race had left behind a large number of corpses and retreated. It was really unbelievable. Is it because of the death of Demon King Qi-jin? Or is it because our strength is beyond the demon race's expectations and they temporarily retreated? The experts of the human race discussed among themselves. Although they did not have a clue and did not know the real reason, there was one thing that they were certain of. That was, they won. The human side won. They won beautifully. They defeated the demon race with an extremely small price and defended the divine realm. Every human expert had a smile on their faces as they enjoyed the joy of victory. They did not feel anything even when they were in an endless land of blood. At this moment, it had long been overshadowed by excitement and joy. They had defeated the arrogant demon race head-on. In the divine realm. We won? Are you kidding me? The demon race retreated? How is that possible? Is there something wrong with the demon race? They retreated less than 2 hours after the battle began? What the hell is going on? The experts of the ancient race were dumbfounded. They did not understand what was going on. They had thought that this would be a difficult defensive battle. At most, the humans would be able to fight the demon race to a standstill. Who would have thought that the humans would have the absolute advantage from the start of the battle? The demon race retreated less than 2 hours after the battle as if they were afraid of the humans? Were the humans that strong? So strong that the demon race retreated in the face of difficulties? It was simply inconceivable. However, the truth was right before their eyes. The humans had indeed won. They had defeated an opponent that even the witch race might not have been able to defeat and were currently enjoying the fruits of their victory. The ancient race experts, including ancient god Verdant Wood, looked at each other when they heard this exciting news. For a moment they did not know whether to laugh or cry. The development of the battle had completely exceeded their expectations. They had won? Chapter 1636. Dual Polarity Palace. The demons were repelled by the humans? Huang Jifu heard the news and was stunned for a full 10 seconds. Huang Jifu furrowed his brows, which were as deep as a chasm. To Huang Jifu, this news was indeed quite unexpected. Ji's intelligence network was powerful. The demons might not know about the alliance between the humans and the ancients, but Ji already knew. Whether it was the ancients or the humans, Ji's power was everywhere, so it was not difficult for him to find out. But even so, Huang Jifu did not expect the demons to lose. Although the aboriginals were strong, they had less than 30% of their strength left and were on the verge of death. The humans might have a rare super genius like Lin Feng, but they were still at a disadvantage. War was not a one-on-one battle. No matter how strong Lin Feng was, it was impossible for him to fight against 10,000 and defeat the entire demon race. Not long ago, the 8 Great Territory Alliance did not even have a single Saint King realm expert. But now, he was actually able to repel the menacing demons? This news was shocking. But, with Ji's intelligence network, the news could not be false. From the beginning to the end, every detail of the Divine Domain War was recorded clearly. There were almost 100 scrolls of information, showing the entire battle in detail. There were even some videos. Humans were really strong. Hua Shua. As Huang Jifu looked at the video, the scene changed every second. However, with Huang Jifu's eyesight and experience, the whole scene was instantly sorted out in his mind. Even if it was just a small part, he could already see many secrets. The secrets of the humans. So it's the astral treasure Qi, Huang Jifu nodded, his eyes flashing with envy. No matter how powerful and capable Ji was, he could not get a weapon like the astral treasure Qi. He only got a few when Lin Feng first sold them, and most of them were not high quality. In order to display its absolute power in war, the astral treasure Qi not only needed a large number, it also needed a high quality. In the video, the humans were much weaker than the demons, but with more than 3,000 astral treasures, the demons were completely suppressed. Why? It was because of this endless number of immortal mythical beasts and ferocious beasts that mercilessly crushed the demon clan experts like war machines. From the very beginning, the advantage that they had started to expand and expand, causing the demon clan to retreat again and again. One misstep and the entire game would be lost. Even with the assistance of the astral treasure puppet, the number of human experts is truly frightening. The horn on Huang Jifu's forehead flashed with a golden and silver light. It's almost double the amount in the intelligence report. A glint flashed in his eyes with a hint of anger. Huang Jifu was not angry because of the strength of the human masters, but because of the inaccurate information. Ji was the most powerful intelligence network in the Do spirit world, yet they had been mistaken about the number of powerful beings in the human race, so how could he not be furious? But in reality, it wasn't a mistake. Firstly, Lin Feng had kept it a secret that Fang Ning and the other experts from the Water Curtain Cave had joined the alliance. Secondly, the implementation of the God-making plan had created countless new experts in the 8 Great Domain Alliance in a short period of time. This was the reason why Ji's intelligence network had such a huge error. And this Lin Feng, his strength is becoming more and more unfathomable. He was lucky when he killed the witch Emperor Jiang Huandao, but this time, he easily killed the demon king Qi Jin. His ability is indeed not to be underestimated. Even the Blood Tiger Emperor is wary of him. However, this strength is only at the same level as the witch Emperor Jiang. Shua. The video projection was turned off. Huang Jifu's eyes flashed. Seeing was believing. Seeing Lin Feng kill the demon king Qi Jin in the video, Huang Jifu had a rough idea of his strength. Perhaps he was not as strong as the witch Emperor Jiang before, but with his talent, he was confident that his strength had long surpassed the witch Emperor Jiang. Although Lin Feng was strong and had a terrifying talent, he was still young and had not fully explored his potential. From the intelligence report, this little guy gets stronger when he meets a strong opponent. His potential is huge and his strength will increase every once in a while. To Ji, he is not only a hard bone to chew but also a thorn. This kid must be eliminated as soon as possible. Huang Jifu's eyes flashed and he slowly closed his eyes. Only the faint killing intent was left in the huge palace. It was suffocating. Huang Jifu had wanted to intervene in this battle, but it was not the right time yet. Although it was not the best time, he had no choice but to take action in the current situation. The divine territory. The ancient race and the human race. The next battle in the divine territory. Let me, Huang Jifu, take part in this mess. Let's see who will have the last laugh. The first battle after the alliance between the humans and the ancient race had ended. Even though the ancient race had many doubts about the human race and were extremely suspicious of the human race, the outcome was already in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. Not only did the humans defeat the demon race and defend the divine territory, but the human casualties were much lower than expected. The casualty ratio was 9:1. It was a terrifying number that made people gasp in amazement. Although the ancient eastern and ancient western regions were lost, this was the plan they had discussed before. It was impossible to defend all three regions at the same time. The only way was to concentrate their forces and have the powerful beings of the ancient race pretend to defend the two ancient regions while the main force defended the divine territory. The result? It was exactly as they had planned. It was a great victory. However, the humans and the ancient race did not relax at all. Not long after the battle ended, the powerful beings of the ancient race swarmed into the divine territory. Lin Feng personally made arrangements for the battle. The elite pinnacle cosmic sector states of the 8 Great Territories Alliance entered the small spirit gathering formation to break through. Although it was a small battle, the small spirit gathering formation had absorbed enough energy and was shining brightly. One more saint-level expert would mean one more. In half a month's time, there might be hundreds or even thousands of saint-level experts among the human race. I'll leave the setup of the restriction formation to you, Shun. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Don't worry, I've prepared it long ago. Shun smiled and waved an ancient book in his hand. His eyes were filled with excitement. Lin Feng had given him the 1,000 Lotus formation. It was extensive and profound. Although he had only scratched the surface, he believed that this formation would shine brightly and cause the demon race to suffer heavy losses. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. He had obtained the 1,000 Lotus formation from many places. Although it was not a valuable secret manual in the galaxy world, it was a top-notch formation in the Doling world. Although he had an 80% chance of defeating the demon race, this concerned the fate of the humans and the ancient race. He could not afford to be careless. The more hands he had, the more hope he had. After making all the preparations, he would wait for the demon race to attack and make a beautiful comeback. Chapter 1637. Qi Jin's Heavenly Fire Space. The Sea of Fire was terrifying. The endless Saint King level Heavenly Fire devoured everything in the Heavenly Fire Space like a demon. It wasn't the Heavenly Fire's consciousness, but an ability given to the Heavenly Fire Space by the owner of the Heavenly Fire Space. Even if Qi Jin's soul was destroyed, the Heavenly Fire Space still carried out its mission. Bang! Bang! The Heavenly Fire was so strong that even a Saint King level warrior, who majored in the Tao of Fire, might not be able to resist it. Flames were divided into different levels. The Heavenly Fire itself was only slightly weaker than the Devouring Fire. However, when it was combined with the Heavenly Dog Clan, the Heavenly Fire wasn't any weaker than the Devouring Fire. Since they were both Saint King level, the Heavenly Fire in the hands of the Heavenly Dog Clan might not be weaker than the Devouring Fire. However, the Heavenly Fire right now was an ownerless object. Without the support of will, without the help of star source energy, the Heavenly Fire was like a beast without intelligence. It could only display less than 30% of its original power. Hua Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The Pangu pupil was filled with deep colors. Although he didn't cultivate the power of heaven and earth, the Pangu pupil was the evolution of the vast star pupil and the vast star pupil. He could see through everything. The power of the Pangu pupil was equally strong. However, what was truly terrifying about Lin Feng's main body wasn't his eyes. Instead, it was the flames that had been steadily increasing in power in an orderly manner. Whether it was the devouring fire or the flame of rebirth, the importance of both was self-evident. They had accompanied Lin Feng's growth. And now, he had reached the peak. The peak below the starry sky level. The devouring fire was at the 89th level. The flame of rebirth was also at the 89th level. Now, the two had merged into one. Their attack and defense were as good as one. This was the Phoenix Fire. Although the merged Phoenix Fire was only at the 89th level, The power of the Phoenix Fire at the 80th level was comparable to the Starry Sky level. And how strong would the Phoenix Fire be after breaking through the 90th level? It was hard to estimate. Hiss! Hiss! The crazy heavenly fire came from all directions, but it seemed to be attracted by a mysterious force. Around Lin Feng, there was a layer of invisible light film. Beneath Lin Feng's feet, there was an even more eye-catching gigantic fire lotus platform. Numerous flame-like lotus flowers were in full bloom, and it was peerlessly beautiful. Every single lotus flower had 8 other lotus flowers, and they were like a single entity that covered the entire lotus platform and formed a boundless number. When looked at from afar, it was like 9 phoenixes had spread their wings and soared, and it was extremely mysterious. The heavenly flames were like ferocious dragons that attacked, but they were all subdued by the lotus flowers, which absorbed all of their power. 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat. The treasure left behind by Senior is indeed useful. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth carried an almost imperceptible smile. He merely stood there calmly, but at this moment, wave after wave surged into his body. The fire lotus platform absorbed the endless heavenly fire and refined it, turning it into pure fire energy that poured into his body, nourishing the phoenix flames. The absorption speed was 100 times faster than Lin Feng's devouring of heavenly flames. It could be called a divine artifact, but in reality, the 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat was still inferior to the 3 heavenly treasures formed from the essence blood of the 12 ancestral witches. Astral treasures were divided into human rank, earth rank, and heaven rank. Every rank corresponded to red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, white, and black, which corresponded to the Star Lord rank, Star Domain rank, and Saint rank respectively. In reality, in the Starry Sky world, Saint rank and Saint King rank were actually one entity, and they were collectively called Reserve rank, Reserve Starry Sky Warrior, Reserve Starry Sky Ability User. The Reserve rank was also divided into 9 ranks, which corresponded to Saint rank low, middle, high, peak, Saint King rank low, middle, high, peak, and invincible. Of course, invincible was just a term used in the Douling world. Normally, it was also called Peak Saint King rank, but the same Peak Saint King rank could have a huge difference in strength. For example, which Emperor Jiang was Peak Saint King rank, a group of Witch Kings and Demon Kings were all Peak Saint Kings. The difference here wasn't the amount of star source energy, but the level of comprehension. The 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat was a heaven rank white rank innate treasure. It was even better than the purple rank 9 level golden tower, that originally ranked first in the Supreme Douling world ranking. Although it was a white rank innate treasure, for Lin Feng who majored in the Tao of Fire, the combination of its power was even better than ordinary heaven rank black rank innate treasures. An opportunity. The 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat fell into Emperor Yao's hands and was only used to assist his cultivation. What a waste! Lin Feng sighed in his heart. The 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat was actually the Fire Lotus Seat that Emperor Yao had always used for cultivation. Shun had mentioned it before, and he had seen it before in the Star-Stepping Mansion. However, with his cultivation speed, the Fire Lotus Seat was dispensable, and he didn't think much of it. Until his cultivation reached High Saint King rank. To be precise, it was only after the awakening of Panga's pupil that he entered the Star-Stepping Mansion that the Fire Lotus Seat fused with him. To be recognized by an innate treasure and initiate a fusion, the first condition was that the strength of one's soul was stronger than the treasure's spirit. However, the treasure's spirit was usually stronger than a martial artist of the same level, so it was very difficult to fuse with it. Why was the strongest treasure on the Supreme Douling World ranking only purple rank? That was the reason. Even a Peak Saint King rank martial artist like Sorcerer Emperor Jiang only had the strength of a treasure's spirit that was slightly stronger than a purple rank innate treasure. The 9 Phoenix Lotus Seat was a white rank innate treasure, so Emperor Yao couldn't fuse with it at all. Even if he cultivated to peak Saint King rank, it was still impossible, not to mention that Emperor Yao wasn't that strong at that time. During this period of time, Meng Qi's main body did indeed have a great opportunity. The 9 Phoenix Lotus seat was one of them, but it wasn't the real opportunity. The real opportunity of Meng Qi's main body, it was the star-stepping mansion. This immortal mansion had fallen into Meng Qi's hands a long time ago, but it was far from being used. At that time, Lin Feng only knew that the star-stepping mansion was a cultivation place left behind by a starry sky powerhouse. Although it was precious, as time passed, he learned all the secrets, until his clone entered the last inch of the star-stepping mansion's forbidden area, the Jade Palace. His clone's strength improved greatly and gained powerful abilities. Then, Meng Qi recovered. After the awakening of Pengu's pupil, Lin Feng let Meng Qi enter the Jade Palace, eager to improve his strength. Who would have thought, Meng Qi's main body's opportunity had finally arrived. The star-stepping mansion was indeed a cultivation place left behind by a starry sky powerhouse, but the Jade Palace was the real perfect inheritance. Ordinary Saint King rank powerhouses would only gain some benefits like his clone if they entered. Only the Phoenix constellation cultivators who cultivated the Tao of Fire would be able to unlock the Jade Palace's key. Chapter 1638. The Battle of the Divine Region had officially begun. Just as Lin Feng had said, the first battle was just a warm-up. Firstly, the demon race was not prepared. The army they sent was not even a third of their full strength. The strongest commander of the demon race, the Grey Great Sage, and the vice-commander, the Bull Demon King, had not arrived. Even the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan, who was leading the army, had not made a move. It was very cautious, but it was the right thing to do. If they attacked with all their strength without knowing the enemy's strength, they would be bold but not wise. Kuei Tianyuan's wise retreat was mocked by the demon race generals and secretly discussed. However, it was unanimously approved by the humans and the ancient race experts. If the battle continued, the demon race would not be able to retreat even if they wanted to. They would definitely suffer heavy casualties. I heard that the demon race was furious this time and swore to flatten the divine region to avenge their previous humiliation. Gu Xing smiled and looked at Lin Feng. He was not mocking him or watching a good show. In fact, Gu Xing did not know what he was feeling at the moment. It was just like how he felt about Lin Feng. They were like confidants, enemies, and friends. However, he could not explain it clearly and felt very conflicted. The divine region was the land of the ancient race. Now, it had fallen into the hands of the humans, and the ancient race had to help the humans protect the divine region. They were allies, but the humans had been like ants in the Douling world for countless years. Now they had quietly climbed up and the ancient race was gradually declining. Gu Xing felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. Lin Feng's eyes flickered and said, "Since the battle has begun, we have already expected this result. Even if we do not take the initiative to attack today, the demon race will not let us go in the future. Their ambition is not only limited to the ancient race and the wizard race, but the entire Douling world. The only pity is that the first battle should have been an excellent opportunity to severely damage the demon race's strength and morale. Such an opportunity can only be found by chance." Lin Feng's voice was filled with regret. He shook his head. In the next battle, the demon race would not only be fully prepared, they would also use all their strength. It would be extremely difficult to win by surprise. Brother Lin is really greedy. Gu Xing smiled bitterly and said, "The casualty ratio is close to 10-1. This is a great victory." The Blood Tiger monarch, Kuei Tianyuan, was beaten to the point that he had to run away. This has boosted the morale of our allies. Now, everyone's morale is high, and their eyes are filled with the desire to fight and kill. On the contrary, the originally high morale of the monster race has fallen. As he spoke, Even Gu Xing's eyes seemed to emit flames. The human race might not have changed much, but this great victory was of great significance to the ancient race. The ancient race's hatred for the demon race was as deep as the ocean, and the destruction of several ancient regions had pushed the ancient race to the brink of despair. It was like rain after a long drought. This timely victory had rekindled the ancient race's heart. The demon race will be mobilized in full force in the final battle 10 days later. However, our allies might not be afraid of them. We have seen the strength of the human race. Not only are the masters confident, but the ancient race has also rekindled the flames of war. When the time comes, as long as we work together, I think our chances of victory will be at least 50%. If the 1,000 Lotus Array mentioned by Brother Lin really has the ability to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, our chances of victory will be even higher. Gu Xing's eyes were brimming with battle intent. After being suppressed for so long, he finally found an outlet to vent it out. Not only did he want to lead the ancient race to defeat the demon race, but he also wanted to counterattack and reclaim the lost territories. He wanted to take back everything that the ancient race had lost. Alright. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he smiled. Let's work together and fight to the death with the demon race. We will not return until we have won. The two super experts of the new generation looked at each other and laughed valiantly. At this moment, the two dazzling stars in the sky were like a pair of pearls and jade. They had perfect chemistry. The demon race was coming in a mighty manner. After suffering such a huge loss, the demon race naturally would not take it lying down. This time, the Grey Great Sage personally led the army. Together with the Deputy Commander Bull Demon and the 3 Demon Emperors, they gathered more than 70% of the demon race's absolute combat power and headed straight for the Divine Realm. The humans wanted to fight? The ancient race wanted to fight? Very well. Then let's fight to our heart's content. To the demon race, this kind of decisive battle was what they liked the most. It did not matter if they lost once or twice. What they hated the most was the battle strategy that the Witch Emperor Jiang had used during the Second Great Magi-Demon War. He had kept hiding and harassing until the demon race lost their patience before attacking. Fight head-on? The demon race had never been afraid of anyone. 10 days was a very short period of time. Just like the victory of the First Great War in the Divine Realm, both the ancient race and the humans had just enjoyed the fruits of victory for less than 2 days before the entire army was on standby. They gathered and trained in preparation for this decisive battle. Boom! Rumble! The Divine Realm was extremely lively. This was the first time that the humans and the ancient race had truly practiced together, and it was surprisingly smooth. However, it was unknown whether it was because they were of the same bloodline or because the human experts had experience cultivating in a real place, but they knew how to cooperate like the back of their hands. Swoosh! Swoosh! Countless eyes were focused on the conspicuous small spirit gathering array. They felt the powerful aura seeping out. Even if it was just a little bit, it was already rare and precious. A place of incomparably pure spirit chi. This was the best place for Star Lords, Star Sector level, and even Saint level warriors to cultivate in. However, there were too many monks and too little porridge. Only a small number of people could enter. Win this battle and use military merits to exchange for the right to enter. A soldier held a Fengtian halberd, his eyes filled with battle intent. If I can enter for half a month, I have an 80% chance of reaching the saint level or above. Another soldier's eyes turned purple as he gritted his teeth. The human experts were not only envious, but they were also filled with determination. Most of them were from the younger generation who had just risen. They were full of vigor and were not afraid of tigers. The experts of the older generation who had been affiliated with the 8 Major Territory Alliance had either died, left, or lived in seclusion. Less than 1/10 of them were still alive. They all saw Lin Feng as their goal and flag, and they worked hard to fight for him. Compared to the human elite warriors, the ancient race experts had a complicated look in their eyes. They looked at the small spirit-gathering array, and all sorts of emotions welled up in their hearts. Most of them, or rather 99.9%, had never entered the divine realm. They only knew about the small spirit-gathering array from the humans. Now they finally had an eye-opening experience, but they were not fated with it anymore. It was sad and lamentable. Even so, the ancient race experts had nothing to complain about. After all, even if the divine realm was not given to the humans, they did not have the right to enter. What was the point of knowing? The pre-battle preparations were carried out in an orderly manner. The humans and the ancient race patiently waited for the arrival of the demon race. The demon race, on the other hand, waved their army straight down. It was like a battle axe falling from the sky. It was simple and direct, but it was extremely powerful. Between the two, there was a aureole watching covetously. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious in this battle. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The final battle was about to begin. Chapter 1639. Whoosh whoosh, within the space of heavenly fire, the flames surged like thunder. Lin Feng's cultivation was also in full swing. Qi. Qi. Within the 9 phoenix lotus seat, phoenixes formed from flames circled around Lin Feng. Lotus flowers bloomed beautifully. Endless heavenly fire enveloped the entire space, but it only became nutrients for Lin Feng to cultivate the phoenix fire. The absorption speed was quite shocking. 8 days had passed. The space of heavenly fire that was as large as an ocean only had half of it left. Although the absorption speed was fast with the 9 phoenix lotus seat, Lin Feng still hadn't crossed that barrier and entered a new level. 89th level to the 90th level. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Lin Feng wasn't discouraged. He had already prepared for the worst. After all, this was a qualitative breakthrough. It was easier said than done to reach the starry sky level. His spear technique had been tempered for a long time before it broke through its shackles and entered a new level. However, the breakthrough of the phoenix fire only relied on secluded cultivation. The difficulty was even higher. It's about time. The demon army will reach the city in a little more than 2 days. There are only 2 days left to cultivate. If I still can't break through, I can only give up. Lin Feng calmly cultivated. He was as clear as a mirror. The breakthrough of the phoenix fire wasn't urgent. Perhaps the space of heavenly fire was an excellent place for cultivation. It would be a pity to give it up. However, compared to the safety of the humans, it was negligible. Even without the help of the main body, the humans still had a great chance of winning this battle. However, the chances of victory were still better than nothing. With the main body's help, the overall strength of the humans could still increase. On the battlefield, the slightest advantage could snowball. It could solidify the victory or reverse the situation. Hiss, hiss, after the heavenly fire passed through the 9 phoenix lotus seat, pure energy entered the body and was quickly absorbed. His limbs and bones were surrounded by clear and powerful energy particles, perfectly compatible with his body. The phoenix life plate swallowed everything, but it was like a bottomless pit that couldn't be filled. Is it because of the quantity? Lin Feng frowned. Or perhaps it's a qualitative relationship. But if it's a qualitative relationship, how do I improve it? Or is it because of the mysteries? The reason for the fusion? A string of thoughts appeared in Lin Feng's mind, but there were too many uncertainties at the moment. The most important thing was that he wasn't sure, and he had no direction to look for. He had asked Duoduo before, but Duoduo was only an artifact spirit and not a real martial artist. He could talk about the general principles of cultivation, but when it came to the details, he had great vision but little ability. He was powerless. He could only rely on himself. Lin Feng wasn't smart, but he wasn't stupid either. Since he couldn't get an answer, he would try them one by one. Most of the time, many things were actually tested out. During the process of cultivation, one could sense the progress of cultivation and come into contact with some insights every minute. For example, even though he had yet to determine the true method of breaking through, Lin Feng had already rejected most of the methods of absorbing quantity. If it was really because of the quantity, then the 10 days of absorbing and refining the heavenly fire should be enough. But what he felt at the moment was the word endless. The Phoenix natal chart was like a black hole that couldn't be filled. Just as he had been using it before, the rebirth fire was endless. What was the reason? Which path should he take? How could he really break through the 90th level and reach the starry sky realm? Fusion, my devouring fire and rebirth fire, have already reached the peak of the 89th level. The fusion is also perfect. The formation of the Phoenix fire is the clearest affirmation. Could it be the mystery of breaking through the starry sky realm? Is it the energy source of the Tao of fire, the affirmation of the origin energy? Absorbing and refining, do it according to the heart. Lin Feng didn't focus on this, but considered other aspects again and again. As the battle approached, it became more and more urgent. What was it? What was it? Lin Feng pursed his lips, feeling the passage of time, feeling the change in his mentality. He gritted his teeth and couldn't help but clench his fist. Heart condensation saw through everything in his body. His eyes were completely focused on the Phoenix natal chart in his body. The Phoenix natal chart formed a lifelike soaring phoenix with 6 shining light spots. The 5th Earth natal chart had already been opened. Of the 2 destiny astrolabes, the Yang destiny astrolabe, which controlled the fire of rebirth, was destroyed and rebuilt. The life spirit was burned to the extreme and degenerated back to its original state, which coincided with the opening of the Yang destiny astrolabe. It fused with the life spirit to be reborn, which resulted in the early opening of the Yang destiny astrolabe. However, the Yin destiny astrolabe had yet to open. Could it be because of the Yin fate astrolabe? Lin Feng thought to himself. He had thought of this idea a long time ago. However, it was easier said than done to open the nefarious natal chart. The difficulty was no less than breaking through the 90th level of the Phoenix fire. Once the nefarious natal chart was opened, all 7 natal charts would light up. It meant that the Phoenix natal chart would enter a new level. If all 7 natal charts of the divine beast Phoenix were opened, it would directly become a legendary starry sky existence. And he, with the Phoenix natal chart as the source of his cultivation, he could also break through the shackles and reach the starry sky realm. If I were at the starry sky realm, the breakthrough of the Phoenix fire would be a matter of course. Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. Compared to the breakthrough of the Phoenix fire, the path of lighting up the nefarious natal chart was more distant, more mysterious and unpredictable. He could not see through it at all. Ugh, maybe I've drilled myself into a dead end. Although there are few seniors of the Phoenix clan who have lit up the nefarious natal chart, there are still some. If they can do it, why can't I? If the condition for the Phoenix fire to enter the starry sky realm is to light up both natal charts, then wouldn't all my cultivation be in vain? Lin Feng thought to himself, but he did not deny the existence of this possibility. And from the looks of it, it really was the case. Wait. Lin Feng was slightly startled. His eyes opened, flashing with a bright light. He seemed to have overlooked something. If I light up both the nefarious natal chart and the Yang natal chart at the same time, it is necessary for the Phoenix fire to break through to the starry sky realm. In other words, I can't do it for the time being. But I have already lit up the nefarious natal chart, so there is no bottleneck for the promotion of the fire of rebirth. I can directly cultivate all the way. Why do I have to stubbornly promote the Phoenix fire to the starry sky realm? Lin Feng was slightly startled. He could not help but shake his head with a smile. Even if he promoted the power of the Phoenix fire to the starry sky realm, so what? Maybe the strength of his main body would increase by leaps and bounds, but in a one-on-one situation, he would at most be comparable to his doppelganger. The phoenix fire was not endless, because it was formed by the fusion of the fire of devouring and the fire of rebirth. His fire of devouring was powerful, but unlike the fire of rebirth, the fire of devouring was not endless. The phoenix fire could indeed exert great power in a group attack, but to fight for a long time, he still had to rely on the fire of rebirth. Since that was the case, why not cultivate the fire of rebirth alone? Breaking through from the 89th to the 90th level would be much easier than breaking through with the phoenix fire. At the very least, there would be no barriers to stop him. At the very least, there would be no involvement in the fusion. More importantly, he would have the full support of the Yang Fate star plate. Phew, Lin Feng let out a long sigh. A faint smile appeared on his face. Although this path was a little short, it was clear and there were not many obstacles in the distance. He could vaguely see the end. Compared to breaking through with the phoenix fire, the chances of success were much higher. Outside the divine realm, the fog had become even thicker. It was so thick that even the location of the divine realm could not be seen clearly. It was like a mirage. However, one could clearly see that countless human experts had appeared outside the divine realm. All of them were full of fighting spirit. They densely covered the entire area. The central army led by Lin Feng and the left and right armies led by Qian Lianhuang and Fang Ning stepped out. They did not rely on the geographical location of the divine realm. In fact, the divine realm was not a place that was good at defense. With such a large area and no natural barriers to rely on, it was already good enough that the defensive structure could be increased by 10%. It was far from what it was now, a huge lotus flower. There were clear petals, one layer after another. There were a total of 10 layers. Upon closer inspection, each layer of petals was further divided into 10 layers. There were a total of 100 layers of petals. They formed the structure of this huge lotus flower. From afar, it was beautiful. However, upon closer inspection, it was like a huge maze. It was tens of thousands of miles long. It was simply stunning. Just setting up this formation was not an easy task. With Shun commanding, over 10,000 formation masters worked together to set it up. The cost of the materials was astronomical. Even so, it took 7 days and 7 nights to finish setting it up. However, seeing the formation open smoothly and having the ability to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, all the hard work was worth it. 1,000 Lotus Formation. Just setting up the 100 Lotus Formation is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Shun sighed. Looking at his masterpiece, he was shocked. If he was alone, it would probably take him a year to set up this formation. This was only a part of the 1,000 Lotus Formation. The real 1,000 Lotus Formation had a total of 1,000 layers. It was not the 100 layers here. If you can set up a perfect 1,000 Lotus Formation, even I will die if I enter. Lin Feng smiled. Although he did not know how terrifying the 1,000 Lotus Formation was, since Duo said so, it must be so powerful. The power of the starry sky level was not something he could estimate. Yes. Shun sighed. The Tao of formations is endless. This 1,000 Lotus Formation is only the foundation, according to the book. After it, there is the 10,000 Lotus Formation, the 100 million Lotus Formation, and the endless Lotus Formation that truly explains the profound meaning of formations. Just thinking about it makes my hair stand on end. Lin Feng smiled. Any path was an extremely powerful Tao. The Tao of formations was so. The Tao of refining was so. Needless to say, the Tao of cultivation was also so. However, these were all things for later. He could not see or touch them. He still had to take one step at a time. Right now, defeating the invading demons was the most important thing. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. They're here. His voice was low and filled with fighting spirit. Lin Feng floated in the air and looked into the distance. The flames in his heart were completely ignited. Chapter 1640. They're here. The mighty demon race army had finally arrived. In the 10 days of preparation, the demon race army assembled and attacked in one go. They were not affected by their defeat in the first battle at all. To them, the reason they lost that battle was because they were caught off guard by the humans and because the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan, was too cowardly. How could the mighty demon race be defeated by humans? What a joke! Moreover, this time, they were led by their invincible commander. The Grey Great Saint was in the middle of the demon race army. His eyes were filled with a sharp glint. There seemed to be something different about him compared to before, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Compared to the Great Sage back then, the Grey Great Sage now was more composed and calm. He didn't express his emotions and was more mysterious. Even the Bull Demon King, who was standing beside the Grey Great Sage, seemed to have changed into a different person. He was wearing a heavy armor that accentuated his enormous physique. His legs were as sturdy as steel pillars, and his muscles were like pieces of branded iron. In terms of physique alone, he seemed to be stronger than the Great Sage. However, compared to the Great Sage, his eyes were less spirited. Instead, they were filled with coldness and a dim gray light. Under the two commanders, the 3 demon emperors gathered, each leading an army. They were mighty and domineering. They were originally experts at the top of the demon race's pyramid. Now that they were under the command of the Great Sage, they had no complaints. The demon race had always respected the strong. The 3 demon emperors were convinced that they had lost to the Great Sage. The difference in strength was too great. This was especially so after the Great Sage returned. His terrifying strength made the 3 demon emperors feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Majestic and boundless, the terrifying aura of the demon race army covered the entire land. The demon race's body was already huge, not to mention their large numbers. The strength of this army was enough to make one's heart tremble. The area covered by this army might not even be able to contain 10 or even 100 divine regions. Facing the allied forces of the humans and the ancient race, the demon race launched their first attack. They didn't underestimate the enemy. Even a lion had to go all out when hunting a rabbit. The demon race was not stupid, especially the demon race with high bloodlines. Their intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. It was just that the demon race did not like to use their brains. To them, it was best to use force to solve things. Fighting was the most enjoyable and exciting thing for them. Every demon had madness and bloodthirstiness in them, just like how human beings always had scheming and selfishness in their blood. This was the difference between different races. Looks like the Yao clan wants to deal us a heavy blow and win this battle cleanly. Shun smiled indifferently, and there was no fear in his smile. Instead, his eyes revealed a strand of a strange expression, and he was rather excited. Isn't that what you want? Lin Feng looked at Shun with a smile. As a formation grandmaster, if Shun claimed to be the second best in the field of formation, no one in the entire human race would dare to claim to be the best. Shun had painstakingly set up the 100 Lotus formation because he really wanted to unleash the full power of the 100 Lotus formation. He wanted to see it for himself and fulfill his long-cherished wish. And this time, the demons were going all out. It could be said that they were able to unleash the full power of the 100 Lotus formation. This was exactly what he wanted. Heh! Shun rubbed his palms together, and his eyes flashed with a burning light. Since the beginning of the war, Lin Feng had been supporting the entire human race. Most of the time, he was in charge of coordinating and advising, and he rarely participated in the war. As the human race grew stronger, Shun's strength ranking fell again and again. It was difficult for him to achieve anything on the battlefield. Now he finally had a chance to show what he was good at. he also wanted to contribute to the human race. He really wanted to use his hands to wash away the shame of the human race. Shun was a very rational person. He had personally experienced the rise and fall of the human race. When he saw the human race being oppressed, even when his master, Emperor Yao, went missing, he endured. But now there was no need to endure anymore. Come. Shun's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. The 100 big positions of the 100 Lotus formation had been arranged properly. Once the demons entered the formation, he would immediately activate the 100 Lotus formation and firmly protect the divine realm. Although the final outcome of this battle depended on Lin Feng and the strength of the human race and the ancient race, the appearance of the 100 Lotus formation was something the demons had never seen before. Its terrifying power would definitely shock the demons when the time came, and it would have a miraculous effect. If the demons wanted to attack and break through the divine realm, then the first thing they had to do was to break the 100 Lotus formation. Could they break it? In the face of this giant lotus flower, which looked like the emperor of flowers, it raised its head proudly. Even the demon clan was somewhat fearful. It could be said that they still had lingering fears about formations. In the Second Great Magi Demon War, a large part of the reason why the demon race lost was because they were at a disadvantage in terms of formations. The demons did not know how to set up formations, and they lacked experts who could break them. Formations not only required talent, but also patience to study and ponder. To the aggressive demons, this was equivalent to torture. But now, the humans had set up a great formation to protect the divine realm. What could the demons do? Wait. Waiting would not cause the formation to collapse. With the caution of the humans, the demons also knew that it was wishful thinking to ask the humans to give up on defense and give up on this great formation to fight them. Therefore, they did not have many choices. They could either study the mysteries of this formation and patiently try to break it, or attack directly. Formations were not invincible. No matter how intricate a formation was, there was a limit to its power. It was like a complicated maze. A powerful expert might not be able to walk out, but he could destroy the maze. In the Tao of arrays, this method was called breaking arrays with force, and it was not rare. After all, more than 90% of the cultivators did not understand arrays, and among the remaining 10%, 99% had only scratched the surface of arrays. This included Lin Feng himself. Roar! The angry dragon roared, and the entire ground shook violently. The demon army did not make the humans wait for long. In less than half an hour, they began their first charge. Facing a formation they had never seen before, the demons chose the simplest and most direct way to break it: charge. They had no choice. To break the formation, they had to enter the formation and personally experience its power. The dragon race, the tiger race, the elephant race, and the wolf race entered in batches, with star lords and star sea lords as the main force. Saints and even saint kings followed behind without fear. Fight. They wanted to kill all the enemies in front of them. But was it that easy? Beasts are beasts. Even if they turn into humans, the blood and cells in their bodies are still beasts. They can never change. Shun said indifferently. Looking at the vast and boundless demon race army in front of him, his aura was monstrous, but his expression did not change and his heart did not beat faster. A ray of light gathered between his fingers and shot out like a meteor, aiming directly at the center of the huge lotus. There was a touch of auspicious red there, like the origin, like the heart of the entire lotus. Bang! A light voice sounded. Shun's light seemed to have lit up a candle. In an instant, the entire lotus was shining brightly. Rays of light flowed from the auspicious red to the surroundings of the lotus, as if they were flowing into the limbs and bones. The flickering of the light led the formation masters on each formation to comprehend the situation in their hearts. Pa, pa, pa. In an instant, the entire lotus was lit up. A ray of light accompanied another ray of light, and a touch of energy accompanied by a wave of energy. From the center to the surroundings, the veins of the lotus expanded layer by layer. The bright red color was dazzling. The aura of the entire space seemed to be swallowed by the huge lotus. It was impossible to see clearly, and even sound became blurry. How magical! Lin Feng's eyes glittered. He was shocked. It was the first time he had seen the 100 Lotus formation. Even the power of the world could not penetrate this huge lotus formation. As it opened and closed, the entire world was swallowed. 1, 10, 100 lotuses bloomed. They looked bright and beautiful, but they were like blood guillotines that took people's lives without leaving a trace. The demon clan army that blotted out the sky disappeared in an instant. The radiance of the lotus flower became even more demonic and eye-catching. The flourishing of the branches and leaves, with the center as the origin, expanded rapidly. It was like a huge beast devouring its prey, becoming more and more terrifying. At this moment, Shun's eyes were burning. As the controller of the 100 Lotus formation, he knew the situation of the 100 Lotus formation best. Its power was fully unleashed. The astral fruits, which gathered all kinds of precious power of the world, unleashed a powerful effect. They could live or die. These treasures, which had a huge amount of spiritual qi and could come back to life, were now the sharp blades of the 100 Lotus formation, taking the lives of the demon experts. The Grim Reaper had arrived. Whoosh! A lotus opened its huge petals and swallowed the elephant experts instantly. Swish! A huge suction force came from the center of another lotus. Many wolf experts were terrified. They wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. Swish! There was also a lotus flower that was spinning its petals rapidly like a meat grinder, shredding the experts of the tiger tribe into pieces one after another. Their massive bodies were like paper before the lotus flower, unable to withstand a single blow at all. Swish! Swish! There were illusions in front of them. A saint-level leopard expert widened his bloody eyes. He looked like he was in pain. Blood seeped out from his ears, and his body trembled violently. Soon, he fell into a pool of blood with his mouth wide open and a look of horror on his face. There were all kinds of strange killing techniques. The 100 Lotus formation had a total of 100 different attacking methods. Some of the Monster Clan experts who entered the formation had strong physical defenses, some had strong willpower, and some had shocking strength. However, every Monster Clan expert had a weakness. They all had their weak spots. On the contrary, the 100 Lotus formation looked weak and fragile, but it had no blind spots. There are two types of formations. One type is a simple maze formation. An illusory formation uses the way of formations as its source and condenses the power of the world to form. The other type uses the core of the formation as its source. The stronger the core, the more powerful the formation. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The great formations in the Do Ling world basically only had one of these types. However, the great formations at the starry sky level had both. Not only did they have the core of the formation, but they also had the support of the way of formations and the condensation of the power of the world. Chapter 1641. Charge. They kept charging and breaking through the enemy lines. The army of the Demon Clan, led by the Demon Emperor of the Dragon Bull Clan, by Yunlei, launched attacks again and again. All kinds of Demon Clan experts entered, but the entire lotus flower was as stable as a rock. Not to mention the formation being damaged, even the slightest tremor could not be seen. Time passed by second. Niu Yunlei's expression became more and more unpleasant. Not long ago, he was still disdainful of the Blood Tiger monarch Kuei Tianyuan's retreat. Now, he saw how powerful the humans were. The demon army had already suffered heavy casualties before any of the ancient race and humans died. His eyes flashed with anger as he gritted his teeth. He was the one responsible for breaking the formation. If he could not even break one formation, How could he raise his head? Damn it! Nyo Yunlei roared furiously. His true body appeared behind him. He could no longer bear it. He roared fiercely and took the lead. He could not care about anything else. If he continued to endure, even if he could break the formation, his army would suffer heavy casualties. Among them, there were countless members of his race. He could not bear it. Everyone, attack! Bai Yunlei roared in anger as he charged forward like a bolt of lightning. Many Saint Realm and Saint King Realm masters followed behind him, aiming straight for the 100 Lotus formation. If he did not succeed, he would die for a righteous cause. Nyo Yunlei was also skilled and bold. He was not afraid. In his opinion, the only formation in the Douling world that could withstand the attack of his army definitely did not exist. A big fish is here. Lin Feng looked at Shun and smiled. It's a pity that I can't really understand the mystery of the 100 Lotus formation. Otherwise, I would have caught this big fish. Shun sighed and frowned. His tone was filled with reluctance. There were only a few demon sovereigns. It was difficult to kill them on the battlefield. However, it was different in the formation. If Lin Feng could enter the formation, Nyo Yunlei would have nowhere to run and would be forced to fight. He might be able to kill Lin Feng. However, the 100 Lotus formation was too profound. Shun had studied it for a few months and could barely set it up. He still needed the help of many formation masters. In terms of understanding of formations, Shun was only at the 10 Lotus formation level. If he could set up the 10 Lotus array, he would be able to precisely control the array and allow Lin Feng to enter it. However, the difference between the power of the 10 Lotus formation and the 100 Lotus formation was like heaven and earth. Seeing that the big fish had entered the formation but was unable to catch it, Shun's disappointment was beyond words. After all, it was impossible for someone as strong as Nyo Yunlei to rely on formations to kill him. How can everything go according to your wishes in this world? Lin Feng smiled faintly and comforted. It is already praiseworthy that the 100 Lotus array is working so well. If the demons have someone who understands the formation and leaves the 100 Lotus formation aside, that would be a real loss. Lin Feng revealed a faint smile. There were gains and losses. The 100 Lotus formation's power was already sufficient in his opinion. There was a huge flaw in the 100 Lotus formation that Shun had set up. He didn't truly understand the 100 Lotus formation. Instead, he relied on brute force to set it up. It was just like when he was carving the inscription formation that day, relying on the vast star pupil and vast star pupil. He only imitated it from memory and didn't truly comprehend the inscription formation. It was the same for Shun. He could release it but couldn't retract it. After the 100 Lotus formation was set up and merged with heaven and earth, Shun couldn't retract it. Just like the small spirit gathering formation, it was beyond his ability. The most important thing was that the core of the 100 Lotus formation was made of extremely precious star fruit. They gathered a large amount of chi of heaven and earth, and each of them was as precious as a treasure. They were picked in the forbidden area of the demon race that day, and 90% of them had been used here. It could be said that if he wanted to set up another 100 Lotus formation, he would be powerless. That's the only way. Shun smiled bitterly and shook his head. Alright, even so, we have already earned enough. There is no need to be greedy. Lin Feng smiled and looked at the place where Nyo Yunlei disappeared. A faint murderous intent seeped out and curved gently. Even if we can't kill him in the 100 Lotus formation, outside, we still have a chance. With his current strength, a demon emperor-level expert. What was that? What a powerful formation! A tiger tribe warrior murmured. Different from the other tiger tribe warriors, this tiger tribe warrior, who was wearing a standard armor, was very calm. This calmness was not an act, but an invisible aura that was emitted from the bottom of his heart. He was not eye-catching among the tiger tribe warriors. He was not the one with the strongest aura, nor was he the one with the strongest physique. But, Even when the other Tiger Tribe warriors were all dead, he was still alive. The humans were able to defeat the demon race in the first battle. It was indeed not pure luck. Just this lotus formation alone is unheard of. Although I, Huang Jifu, am not a top formation master, I am quite knowledgeable in the art of formations. This lotus formation has never appeared in the Douling world before. The humans are quite capable to hide such a formation for so long. It seems like it was premeditated long ago. Strolling in the lotus formation, this tall and burly Tiger Tribe warrior was as calm as a jar of lake water, without any ripples. He was not a real demon. He was an extreme emperor who used a treasure to change his aura, Huang Jifu. Originally, I wanted to join in the fun and find out more about the humans. I didn't expect to encounter something so interesting. Huang Jifu smiled. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had two hobbies in his life. The first was to become stronger and defeat stronger enemies. The second was to break formations. Huang Jifu was not interested in setting up formations, but he had a special interest in breaking formations. He was being humble when he said that he was slightly knowledgeable in the art of formations. In terms of setting up formations, he only knew a little, but when it came to breaking formations in the entire Douling world, if he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Breaking formations with skills and strength. Huang Jifu was very interested in this 100 lotus formation that he had never seen before. In fact, if Shun had set up any other kind of formation, as long as it appeared in the Douling world and was recorded, it would be broken by Huang Jifu in less than half an hour. In terms of mastery of formations, Shun was one of the best in the human world. However, in the Douling world, there was always someone better, and Huang Jifu was one of the tallest ones. How much longer can it last? Lin Feng looked at Shun with a sharp glint in his eyes. It could be as short as a few hours or as long as a few dozen hours. Unless the demon commander personally makes a move, the 100 lotus formation will be extremely difficult to break. Shun smiled faintly. He was very confident in the 100 lotus formation that he had set up. Even if the demon commander personally makes a move and breaks the formation with strength, it will take a long time just to break the 100 formation cores. Other formations only had one formation core, but the 100 lotus formation had 100 formation cores. Moreover, these 100 formation cores were all interconnected. Although each formation core was not particularly strong, they were all spiritual objects of heaven and earth. They were condensed from the power of heaven and earth, and combined with the exquisite art of formations. The power they could unleash was definitely top-notch. Breaking the formation with skills? Shun did not even think about it. There was no such formation master in the entire Douling world, let alone the demon race. The only possibility was to break the formation with strength. Although there were many formation cores and the art of formations was exquisite, each formation core was only a spiritual object of heaven and earth. It was a saint-level star fruit. The energy it contained was not endless. It could be completely exhausted. After all, the number of demon race experts was terrifying. Even if the demon race was unwilling to sacrifice themselves, the energy of the formation cores would slowly dissipate after repeated clashes. Once the energy of one of the formation cores was destroyed, there would be a gap in the 100 lotus formation. It was like a small hole in a dam. Although it was not enough to cause the dam to collapse, it would no longer be stable. The combined energy level of the formation cores would drop by one level. Soon, a second formation core would collapse, then a third, a fourth, a fifth. The speed at which the 100 lotus formation collapsed would increase. But this was because they knew the weakness of the 100 lotus formation. Only then could they attack it. Those who did not know would only be trapped. It would not be easy to even protect themselves. Moreover, even if a super expert entered, Shun had a backup plan. 100 formation masters controlled 100 formation cores, just in case. The 100 formation cores were linked together and could be moved at any time within the 100 lotus formation. Once one of the formation cores was attacked, its energy would be greatly depleted and it could no longer resist. The formation master controlling the formation core would immediately change its position and switch with the other formation cores. It could be said that this was the best way to cover up the only weakness of the 100 lotus formation. The art of formations is a true great Tao. Lin Feng sighed softly. There are only a few experts in the entire Do Ling world who can break one of the formation cores. If one can set up the 1,000 lotus formation and combine the 1,000 formation cores into one, even I will die without a doubt if I am trapped. Yes. Shun sighed. Seeing the power of the 100 lotus formation, he was pleasantly surprised. Just as he was about to speak, suddenly, Shun's expression changed drastically and turned pale. He said in shock, "Impossible. How is this possible?" Shocked, Shun stared at the 100 lotus formation with his eyes wide open. He said in disbelief, "With the strength of the monster clan, it would take at least 2 hours to exhaust the energy of one of the formation cores. How is this possible?" Shun's lips trembled. It was obvious that he was shocked. Following Shun's gaze, Lin Feng frowned. The huge lotus in the distance seemed to be missing a corner. One of the corners was slightly dimmed, like a piece of white cloth that was dyed black. It was so uneven. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He had mixed feelings. He did not doubt the power of the 100 lotus formation. He trusted Shun's judgment and character. His confidence in the 100 lotus formation was not fake. But why was a corner of the 100 lotus formation broken so easily? The formation master controlling the formation cores did not even have time to change it. What happened in the 100 lotus formation? Pa! Clenching his fists, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly and his heart turned cold. His intuition told him that today's battle would not be as smooth as he imagined. Chapter 1642. What happened? Lin Feng did not know, and Shun could not have looked around, especially when there were too many demon race experts in the 100 lotus formation. Indeed, there was no shortcut for the demon race to break the 100 lotus formation, just as Shun had predicted. However, an alien had sneaked into the 100 lotus formation. A super expert who specialized in breaking formations, a terrifying existence with unfathomable strength, Huang Jifu. I see. Huang Jifu laughed, excitement flashing in his eyes. Below his feet was a human corpse, whose eyes were filled with shock. Seeing the lotus disappear in front of him, Huang Jifu sneered. He looked around and chuckled. The pressure seems to have lessened a bit. Haha, the combination of 100 formation cores, this formations concept is amazing. As he exclaimed, he walked forward. Although Huang Jifu's pace was not slow, it was steady and powerful, giving off an extremely conceited feeling. And he had the ability and the right to be conceited. The excitement in Huang Jifu's eyes dimmed. To him, the challenge was no longer interesting, because he had seen through the secret of this formation. If he could break the first lotus, he could break the second, the third, the fourth. The difficulty would only get lower and lower. The challenge had lost its suspense. Connecting 100 formation cores, unheard of. Huang Jifu sighed softly. I didn't know formations could be played like this. What an eye-opener. Having broken many formations, Huang Jifu naturally learned a lot. However, the entire Do Ling world followed the principle of one formation core, which was strong enough to support the entire formation. Connecting 100 formation cores was easier said than done. It was like combining 100 demon race experts with different strengths into one. One could imagine how difficult it was to combine them into one. This was the Tao of formations. However, the Tao of formations was so profound that it was not something an ordinary formation master could understand, let alone combine two formations. Only a few people in the entire Do Ling world could understand the Tao of formations. Unfortunately, Huang Jifu was one of them. Moreover, he was probably the strongest one. The humans had a bad start. Lin Feng's plan could not keep up with the changes. He had intended to defeat the demons by surprise and crush their morale with the 100 Lotus Array. However, he did not expect that Huang Jifu would appear out of nowhere and change the situation of the battle. With one wrong move, the entire 100 Lotus formation fell apart. Following the withering of the first lotus, the second, third, and fourth lotus quickly lost their luster and dimmed. Not only Huang Jifu, but the Saint King Realm Demon Clan cultivators led by Bai Yunlei also displayed their powerful abilities. The 100 lotuses formed a whole, and the loss of a single lotus would result in a huge difference in strength. The power of the lotus would be reduced by more than 70%. Pung, pung, pung. The entire 100 lotus formation shook violently. The earth shook and the sky swayed. One could vaguely hear the wild roars of the demon clan. The other demons who were watching the destruction of the formation from afar were even more excited. They danced with joy at the destruction of the human formation. To them, humans only relied on these tricks. Once these tricks were exposed, what awaited the humans was only death awaited them. The demon race had never been afraid of a direct confrontation. Damn it! Shun clenched his fists and trembled. The 100 Lotus formation had been prepared and set up for so long. It had also consumed countless precious star fruit. However, before it could even display half of its power, it had already collapsed. Shun did not expect such a drastic change. At this moment, he felt ashamed and angry. He had failed Lin Feng's trust. Don't be discouraged. It's already very good. Lin Feng looked at Shun and comforted him with a smile. Think about it from another perspective. We actually did not lose much. The 100 star fruits are just worldly possessions. Other than that, we only lost 100 array masters. However, the demon race suffered heavy casualties. Lin Feng looked into the distance and said softly, "It's still better than the demon race, seeing through the 100 Lotus formation's mysteries and suppressing it with inaction. The warm-up battle is a success. Now we'll see how much power the Ancient Race Alliance can display." If the demon race wants to break through the concentrated energy bombardment of the ancient race cultivators, the price they have to pay is many times higher than the 100 Lotus formation. Lin Feng's voice was sonorous. The 100 Lotus formation only had a miraculous effect. Although it did not achieve the expected effect, it had already completed half of the mission. There was no need to nitpick. Instead, it would leave resentment in their hearts and affect their judgment in the upcoming battle. The foundation of war was still a face-to-face confrontation. Whose fist was harder? Boom, boom, rumble. The 100 Lotus formation collapsed. The demon race cultivators roared at the sky as the formation cores perished one after another. The surviving demon race cultivators who were trapped in the formation all roared to vent the frustration in their hearts. It was a feeling of escaping from death. It was an indescribable comfort and joy. They had escaped. They had finally escaped from this damned formation. Demon Emperor Bai Yunlei's eyes were especially bright. His arrogance roared through the sky. He did not disappoint the commander. He had broken through the only defense system of the human cultivators at a very small price. Not far away, the divine domain could be vaguely seen. It was like layers of fog had dispersed and eggshells had been removed. Those overconfident human powerhouses were right in front of them. Humph! Bai Yunlei looked around and sneered. The number of human cultivators was less than 1/10 of the demon race. They were not even on the same level. In his opinion, the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was just a coward. Why should he be afraid of mere humans? How were they strong? He could not see it. Roar. With a loud roar, Yunlei was arrogant. He revealed his true body behind him, and his emperor's aura spread across the sky. The surviving demon race cultivators' morale was even higher. The elites were full of fighting spirit. Their aura was overwhelming. But in the next second, everything had changed. The sky changed. The aura changed. The entire space changed. Rumble! Rumble! The misty sky suddenly changed. In an instant, thick clouds rolled and lightning flashed in all directions. The demon race cultivators were shocked to find that they had lost contact with the demon race army in the distance. It was as if they had fallen into hell. They could no longer feel any other aura. The only thing they could feel was the terrifying origin energy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Many figures appeared behind the demon race army. They were the ancient race cultivators who had concealed their auras. Thousands of ancient race cultivators of the space element locked down the space. The ancient race cultivators of the earth element all appeared. Under the command of the divine Mother Earth, the sky and earth roared. Meteors fell from the sky, forming a terrifying joint attack. Although the combined power of the meteors was average, the combined power of tens of thousands of ancient race cultivators of the earth element was enough to terrify the demon race. Especially, even the space was locked down. There was no way to advance or retreat. The meteors fell from the sky within the small lotus space. At this moment, a nightmare descended. Chapter 1643. How terrifying were heavenly gods! As long as their abilities were suppressed, a single heavenly god could cause the destruction of an entire army. If thousands of heavenly gods attacked at the same time, how powerful would it be? It was unimaginable. However, the prerequisite was that they had to use the same attack technique. The combination technique was not that simple. How powerful could two heavenly meteors be when they used the same technique? The answer was not 1 + 1 = 2. It was far less than 2. Because the two could not be combined. Everyone was fighting for themselves. The two meteors only concentrated their attacks, that was all. However, the ancient race was not an ordinary race. As one of the three major races of the human race, how could the ancient race not have their own treasures? The combination technique was one of the ancient race's secret technique. It looked like thousands of heavenly gods were attacking at the same time, but in reality, it was only dozens of heavenly kings. Led by the mother goddess of the earth, dozens of earth elemental saint king-level ancient race cultivators gathered the power of their clansmen and performed a joint technique. Like a magnet, they sucked in all the power, using their powerful control to control the power that was far beyond what they could handle to launch an all-out attack. Boom! A terrifying sound descended. Like a destructive meteor shower, the power of the meteors condensed the powerful Earth origin energy and concentrated in the already destroyed 100 Lotus formation. Lin Feng had already set up a backup plan. The 100 Lotus formation would definitely be destroyed. However, what seemed like a crisis could be a turning point. Especially when the formation had just been destroyed, the heavenly gods would definitely let down their guard. This was the perfect opportunity to deal a heavy blow to the heavenly gods. Although this combination technique would consume a lot of the caster's spiritual energy and willpower, and they might not be able to continue fighting after this attack. But it was worth it. The alliance between the humans and the ancient race did not lack heavenly god. What they lacked was absolute numbers. Die. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. There was no mercy. The battle with the heavenly gods was a life-and-death battle. There was no way out. Looking at the power that made one's hair stand on end, his heart was in his throat. A violent explosion that sounded like the end of the world shook the land outside the god realm. Rumble! A mushroom-shaped cloud of smoke rose into the sky. The terrifying aura and energy waves even affected the nearby heavenly gods, including the area where the human heavenly gods were. Just the outer region was already so shocking. What would happen inside? What about the casualties of the demon race? The earth elemental experts of the ancient race, led by the mother goddess of the earth, were ghastly pale. A single attack had drained all of their energy. The experts of the ancient race anxiously looked at the area that was shrouded in smoke and clouds. They were truly worried because they did not have the ability to launch a second attack. If he didn't succeed, he would die trying. Could their combined technique succeed? The answer was yes. Good. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth curved into a happy smile. In terms of sensing ability, he was naturally the strongest here. More than 70% of the auras in the area covered by the smoke had died, and the remaining 30% were probably injured as well. 70% was not simply 70%. 70% of 1,000 was only 700, and 70% of 10,000 was only 7,000. But what about the demon race? This was Bai Yunlei's army. It could be said that almost 1/5 of the demonic beast race's military strength had been lost, and a full 70% of them had died. How shocking was that? A single attack had caused the demon race to lose more than 1/10 of their total forces. This shocking scene caused the demon kings and demon emperors of the demon race to turn ghastly pale. They found it hard to accept. They had never experienced such a tragic situation before. Facing the experts of the ancient race, the demon race had long prepared a countermeasure. They would not gather their forces and give the ancient race any chance to show their might. But this time, they had been countered by the demon race's formation. They had schemed against the unprepared. He was battered and exhausted. It was best to describe Bai Yunlei's current state. His usual calmness had long disappeared and was replaced by deep anger. His expression was ferocious, and the wild bestial blood in his body was completely ignited. He had only suffered some superficial injuries that did not affect him, but his face had been greatly humiliated. More than 70% of the army he led had died. Tragic. Tragic was more than enough to describe it. Humans, I will make you regret it. Bai Yunlei roared ferociously and revealed his true form. The giant dragon ox race was mighty. His body was extremely huge, and he had the head of a dragon and the body of a bull. He also had the bloodline of the ancient ferocious beast Taotai. Regardless of talent, he was the best of the 4 demon emperors. Bai Yunlei was truly furious. However, this was exactly what Lin Feng wanted. Seeing that Bai Yunlei had lost his mind due to anger, Lin Feng's lips curled up. He was overjoyed. Good timing. Previously, he had thought that he would not be able to catch this big fish. He did not expect the opportunity to present itself so quickly. The demon race army behind him was still in shock. Bai Yunlei had charged forward alone. This was reckless. A sharp light flashed in Bai Yunlei's eyes. His huge and muscular body had a cunning look that was rarely seen in the demon clan. The greatest effect of the wizard bell was to affect one's mind. This was especially so for warriors who were not prepared. If they were attacked by the wizard bell at a close distance, their minds would be affected. Even if it was only for a short period of time, it was extremely fatal. How could someone as strong as Bai Yunlei let go of such a good opportunity? Swoosh! Lin Feng attacked ferociously. He was completely stunned. A look of confusion flashed in his eyes. He was completely caught off guard by the wizard bell. Bai Yunlei was overjoyed. He immediately unleashed the attack that he had prepared. The dragon tail behind him whipped out like a whip. His claws formed a circle. A terrifying light flashed. A 2-pronged attack. Bai Yunlei's ability to seize opportunities was extremely strong. The movement of the dragon tail was mysterious. It was like a deadly long whip that went straight for Lin Feng. The tail was as sharp as steel. It was even bigger than Lin Feng's entire body. In an instant, the light ball in Bai Yunlei's hand started to take shape. one could faintly see the shadow of a ferocious beast. This was the top innate ability of the Dragon Bull tribe, Taotia's Feast. Possessing the bloodline of the ancient ferocious beast Taotai, Bai Yunlei not only had the greed and desire of a Taotai, he had even cultivated the top innate ability of the Dragon Bull tribe to the point of perfection. Taotia's Feast was extremely terrifying. As long as Bai Yunlei had enough time, he could condense the Taotia's figure and stimulate the Taotia's blood in his body to devour Lin Feng. At that time, he would be able to absorb Lin Feng's power and increase his strength by another level. Bai Yunlei was not only greedy, he was also very ambitious. But in an instant, his eyes widened. He was completely stunned. Qi. Like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, the tail whip containing the super void realm swept past. Lin Feng, who had been stunned by the wizard bell, mysteriously disappeared. It was extremely strange. Not good. Bai Yunlei's expression greatly changed. He suddenly raised his head. The light ball in his hand suddenly dissipated. He had no choice but to give up on using his innate ability. Lin Feng was in the air, descending like a shooting star. The long spear in his hand was extremely terrifying, capable of seizing souls. Hua! Bai Yunlei's face was ghastly pale. His strength instantly decreased by 20%. He gritted his teeth and swallowed a star fruit. The innate ability of the Dragon Bull clan was indeed powerful, but it had to be integrated with the hidden power in the body. Every time it was used, it would consume a lot of the body's energy. Taotia's Feast was extremely powerful. It could even absorb the power of a strong warrior's blood essence. However, it also had a great restriction. It needed enough time to condense the Taotia's figure. Otherwise, it would be completely useless. God-damned human! At this point, how could Bai Yunlei not know that he had been tricked? Lin Feng wasn't affected by the wizard bell at all. He was just going with the flow. However, Bai Yunlei was affected by his greed. He recklessly used his innate ability, Taotia's Feast, and lost an arm before the battle even started. There was already a gap in strength. Now it was even bigger. Qi. Lin Feng's eyebrows were like stars and the moon. The power of his spear was decisive and sharp. However, Bai Yunlei's defense wasn't bad. After all, he was a demonic emperor. He was from the Dragon Bull clan, which had the strongest defense among the 4 demonic emperors. It was easier said than done to take his life. Bai Yunlei's face was red. He had already swallowed the maniac fruit. He didn't care about the price he had to pay. After his attack failed, he didn't want to try to kill a human again. Right now, he only wanted to escape. But could he escape? Chapter 1644. Lin Feng decided to beat him at his own game. Why? With Lin Feng's strength and confidence, he didn't need to use any tricks to defeat Bai Yunlei. The reason why he did this was to increase his chances of killing Bai Yunlei. Indeed, it was to increase his chances. It was difficult to have a 100% chance of killing a demonic emperor. Lin Feng had a trump card. Did Bai Yunlei not have one too? These people who were at the peak of the Douling world had all experienced countless years of life and death situations. They had reached the peak of their abilities and the use of treasures from the outside world. For example, the wizard Falling Bell, ranked 3rd on the Supreme Douling World Leaderboard, was not as powerful in Lin Feng's hands as it was in Bai Yunlei's hands. Lin Feng didn't even have time to cultivate and control the 9-floored Brilliant Golden Tower, ranked 1st on the Supreme Douling World Leaderboard. The reason was simple. He didn't have time. However, Bai Yunlei had enough time to cultivate and cultivate again and again to uncover the potential of the wizard Falling Bell. How could a powerful being ranked 3rd on the Supreme Douling World Leaderboard be ordinary? Ring, 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 the bell kept ringing, shaking people's hearts. Along with the movement of the gluttonous cloud thunder, every small change would bring about a different ringing sound, and it was quiet and unending. With Lin Feng's willpower, he wasn't afraid of the wizard falling bell. However, he couldn't avoid being affected. Even if it was an inconspicuous weak effect, it was still fatal in a battle between powerful beings. Did the wizard falling bell only have one ability? No, just like other natural treasures, the witch-fall bell had a total of 3 abilities. However, Tai Yunlei did not choose to cultivate all 3 abilities at the same time. Instead, he chose to cultivate the simplest and most direct ability of all, the witch-fall bell's own ability, support and control. Bai Yunlei didn't lack in attack. Bai Yunlei was the best among the demonic emperors when it came to defense. He knew what he wanted. The wizard falling bell gave him the most direct and clearest effect, which was assist. After a long period of cultivation, Bai Yunlei had fully unleashed the most essential ability of the wizard fall bell. The sound of the bell was soul-stirring. Bai Yunlei deliberately changed the movement of the bell. The seemingly illusory sound of the bell actually had a pattern that ordinary people would not be able to understand. It could only be unleashed time after time, cultivated time after time, and explored after countless years. Every time the bell rang, it was like a rhythmic tune that had a different effect. Even someone as strong as Lin Feng wouldn't be able to overcome the soul-stirring bell in such a short period of time. However, this did not stop Lin Feng's berserk killing intent. Clang! 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 He was unwilling to give up. In the end, it was because his doppelganger's strength had increased too slowly. He was only 1 level away. If only the Pangu art was slightly stronger, if only he could successfully cultivate the 7-inch fist, if only his spear art was 1 level higher, everything would be different. Was there really no other way? Swoosh! Behind him, a figure shot out like a sharp arrow with a strong aura. His speed was not fast, but there was a soul-stirring power. A faint stream of water surrounded his body. The light from the water bottle was dazzling. The silver diamond-shaped earrings reflected the handsome back view. It was Gu Xing, the prodigy of the ancient clan. There was no need for any conversation or cooperation. They seemed to have a natural tacit understanding. His appearance warmed Lin Feng's heart. He came at the right time. Gu Xing did not hesitate to face Bull Demon with only 30% of his strength left. Even so, he was the strongest person in the ancient clan alliance, second only to Lin Feng. No one could replace his position. Even Fang Ning, Qian Lianhuang, Wan Macho and the others were not weak. However, none of them could compare to Gu Xing, even if he was seriously injured. Thanks. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The spear in his hand shone brighter, and the stone in his heart was lifted. The power of heaven and earth bloomed with a rich radiance. The powerful aura completely suppressed Niu Yunlei. The latter's tough body was already full of holes. With Gu Xing's support, Lin Feng was like a tiger that had grown wings. At this moment, he could unleash all his strength. Such an opportunity would be hard to come by in the future. Against Bull Demon, Gu Xing, who only had 30% of his strength left, was doomed. He was stalling for time, but when the time came, he was afraid that his injuries would worsen. Gu Xing's sacrifice could not be in vain. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. On the battlefield, a tiger tribe warrior was inconspicuous. However, this inconspicuous tiger tribe warrior had already taken the lives of hundreds of human experts. This was the result of hiding most of his strength. Huang Jifu moved around the battlefield and dodged the attacks easily. Even if he did not unleash his full strength, he was invincible in a battle of the same level with his outstanding movement techniques and battle experience. Seeing is believing. Hearsay is false. Huang Jifu moved like a butterfly and moved through the battlefield with ease. No matter how crowded the area was or how shocking the attacks were, it was as if they had nothing to do with him. However, his expression was not as relaxed as his movement technique. One word could describe it: solemn. Although he had a good estimate of the human strength, Huang Jifu was still shocked. In such a short time, the human strength was several times stronger than 10 days ago. This did not include the lotus formation that he had broken earlier. He did not know if the human had any more trump cards hidden. How could the human become so powerful in such a short time? Huang Jifu's eyes shone. He smelled a hint of danger and a deep sense of unease. On the battlefield, gigantic logs fell from the sky as terrifying tidal waves came crashing down. The 5 source energies of water, wood and metal unceasingly obstructed the path of the demonic beast. As for the demonic beasts who managed to pass through the territory of the ancient races, they were swiftly killed by the joint attacks of the human experts. Their cooperation was flawless. Compared to the sorcerer tribe army, the human ancient martial art practitioners were weaker in terms of individual strength. However, their cooperation with the ancient race was better. The humans believed in the power of the ancient race experts. At the same time, they made full use of their strengths to complement each other. Stupid demon tribe. Huang Jifu shook his head and scoffed. Naturally, he was proficient in the art of war. In his opinion, the demonic beast's attack was far more than just foolish. Even if the demonic beast's scattered formation increased the difficulty of the ancient race's deities' attacks, the ancient race's deities' seemingly chaotic attacks were extremely orderly and had a deep meaning behind them. With the deity territory as the center, they spread out in circles. The outermost circle of attack was the largest, and the waves were the most intense. However, only the gods of the ancient race were attacking. It could be said that this kind of attack was purely to scare people. There were very few demon tribe experts who could actually kill them. At most, some unlucky demon tribe experts would be hit directly. The range of the attack in the middle was much smaller, but the power was extremely strong. The innermost circle of attack was the true killing move of the ancient race. Indeed, the goblin race could disperse their attacks and attack in numbers. However, as the defending side, they had a natural advantage. Most importantly, the divine territory was extremely small. If one stood on a high ground and looked down, they would be able to easily see the arrangements of the ancient race. They did not need to waste their energy on large-scale attacks. Instead, they only needed to lock down the deepest region. Of course, it was also extremely dangerous. After all, once the demon tribe experts got close to them, it was undoubtedly a disaster for the gods. However, the human experts concealed this weakness secretly. They were more careful than the sorcerer tribe and paid more attention to their alliance. The human experts killed the demon tribe experts who tried to infiltrate without any regard for their own safety. They did not even hesitate to sacrifice their lives. Humans were not plants. How could they be emotionless? The humans' actions won the respect of the ancient race experts. The tacit understanding between the two sides increased as the battle progressed. The demon tribe was indeed unlucky. Chapter 1645. No! No! Bai Yunlei's face was filled with fear and panic. His right shoulder was covered in blood, as a large piece of flesh had been smashed into pieces. Lin Feng, who was in front of him, was getting more and more powerful. Not only had he blocked his escape route, he had also completely suppressed him. Even though he had swallowed the frenzy fruit and doubled his strength in a short period of time, he still couldn't escape Lin Feng's spear. What did this mean? Lin Feng's strength was at least several times stronger than his. Swish! Bai Yunlei's face was pale, and his body was gradually weakening. The side effects of the frenzy fruit had begun to attack him. The wound on his right shoulder was painful. He had lost a lot of blood, and his vitality had been damaged by the gluttony's feast. At this moment, Bai Yunlei was already powerless. Countless wounds of various sizes on his body were constantly destroying his body and fighting spirit. If he kept defending, he would definitely lose. Roar! Bai Yunlei's ears were buzzing nonstop. He seemed to vaguely hear Xiong Bao's heavy breathing, but he couldn't see or hear it. The surrounding space was completely locked, and only the dazzling spear was left. It was condensed with a terrifying aura and light, and it pierced towards him again. He had blocked countless spears. However, this time, he couldn't block it anymore. Damn it! Bai Yunlei's face was as ferocious as a demon's. He roared angrily in his heart. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. He had experienced countless battles, big and small. He had narrowly escaped death countless times. As the leader of the 4 great demon emperors, he didn't want to fail miserably and die in the hands of a human. To him, death wasn't scary. However, dying like this was a great humiliation. Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Bai Yunlei's eyes were bloodshot. He had completely thrown caution to the wind. The huge dragon tail swept out like a bolt from the blue. This attack contained all of Bai Yunlei's strength. It streaked across the sky and even tore the space apart. Its speed was extremely fast. Not good. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. The power of the inner core. What the demon clan valued the most was the Niden in their bodies. It was the root of their cultivation, just like the soul of a human. Unless they were forced into a desperate situation, the demon clan would never use their Nadens. In fact, there were very few demon clans who had the ability to unleash the true power of their Nadens, but Niu Yunlei was clearly one of those rare few. However, Bai Yunlei's usage of the inner pellet was rather crude. If it were to be categorized according to the level of mystery, it would not even be considered as beginner. Even so, the strength of the Niden would not change. Concentrating all of his thoughts on this final attack was even more terrifying. Even if using this move would result in mutual destruction, Bai Yunlei didn't care at all. This was because he was already prepared to die. He wanted to drag Lin Feng down with him. This whip had far exceeded his own strength. Block? Lin Feng was naturally able to block it. In fact, if he was willing to retreat, there was no need for him to fight with Niu Yunlei. However, every minute and second on the battlefield was crucial. Even though he was fighting fiercely with Niu Yunlei, Lin Feng was constantly observing his surroundings, especially Bull Demon and Bear Fury, one of the 4 great demon emperors. His thick nostrils emitted steam. His brown eyes were as big as copper bells. He waved his huge mace like an iron rod. His aura soared to the sky. Behind Bear Fury, Juan Macho chased after him furiously. However, his strength was still inferior to Bear Fury's, and he was left behind. A light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. He couldn't let the two join forces. Even though Niu Yunlei was an arrow at the end of its flight and Bear Fury alone couldn't save him, who knew what would happen in the future? The battlefield was constantly changing. Fight! Lin Feng's eyes flashed fiercely. He gritted his teeth and ignored Niu Yunlei's final attack. Perhaps he would be injured because of this, but that was nothing. Not far away, Gu Xing was dragging his heavily injured body and retreating. He couldn't delay any longer. The mountain of golden scales formed a thick layer of armor. A golden shield flashed on the right side of his body. Lei Zheng's true body was revealed. His defense was condensed to the best of his ability. However, Lin Feng wasn't sure how much he could block. Anyway, he wouldn't die. Die! Lin Feng's spear chi soared to the sky. He used the Pangu technique to its limit. The power of the heavens and earth gathered in his limbs and bones. Faintly, one could see the flickering of light. He had already peaked at the threshold of the 7-inch fist. However, this was no longer important. The important thing was chi. A clean spear, a simple and direct attack, completely pierced through Niu Yunlei's body. The powerful spear chi and chi instantly broke through Niu Yunlei's defense. His huge body was torn apart. His eyes were filled with resentment and unwillingness. Accompanied by the last strike of the tail whip, Niu Yunlei died with hatred. Purring! It was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Lin Feng didn't feel good either. His head was instantly filled with a roar. No matter how strong his defense was, it couldn't block this terrifying whip. The defense of the mountain of golden scales was torn apart like paper. The most terrifying thing was the impact. It went through the defense and directly hit the body. Lin Feng was stunned. In a split second, he felt the world spinning. His body flew backward as if he was struck by lightning. Puff! Spitting out blood, Lin Feng's face turned pale. Flying backward in the air, his body felt like it was falling apart. The pain was shocking. However, a faint smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. Luckily, although it was more painful than he had imagined and his injuries were more serious, he was lucky to have attacked before Niu Yunlei. Although it was only for a moment, it was very important. If Niu Yunlei had a complete consciousness, his tail whip would have been twice as powerful. He would have been seriously injured. However, he would only be seriously injured. Niu Yunlei wasn't strong enough to kill him. Right now, although his vitality was damaged, it was only a flesh wound. It wouldn't be hard to recover. Lin Feng stabilized his body. A star fruit entered his stomach. Instantly, his body felt cool. His limbs and bones opened up. Powerful energy poured into his body. His pale face became a little redder. Very good. At the cost of a light injury, he had become the leader of the 4 demon emperors. Whoosh! Lin Feng didn't stop at all. The joy of killing Niu Yunlei was instantly suppressed. He dragged his body, which seemed to be falling apart, to the other side of the battlefield. He completely ignored Xiong Bao, who was filled with murderous intent. Not far away, Gu Xing was already surrounded by danger. The remaining 30% of his strength was probably less than 5% now. Brother Gu, hang in there. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. Although he didn't want to be the enemy of the bull demon, he had no other choice. For his race, for the war, for Gu Xing. Swoosh! A ray of light flashed. Lin Feng's extreme speed was unleashed. Huang Jifu was stunned. He raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes flashed. Niu Yunlei is dead? His expression changed instantly. Huang Jifu was shocked. He heard Niu Yunlei's hysterical voice before he died. He couldn't feel his aura anymore. His heart pounded and his expression changed. He knew that Niu Yunlei was fighting with Lin Feng, but he didn't expect that in such a short time, Niu Yunlei was killed. Stupid. As stupid as pigs. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Huang Jifu scolded. His eyes were cold. Huang Jifu was extremely unhappy when he saw the demon race deploying their troop. He had just helped the demon race break the Lotus Formation. Who would have thought that the demon race would be so stupid? They didn't know how to adapt when faced with the suppression of the ancient race's heavenly gods. They wanted to exhaust the ancient race's strength with their numbers. Didn't they know how to use their brains? If it were him, would the humans and the ancient race hide together like turtles? It couldn't be better. One formation after another would trap them. There were many ways to lure the snake out of its hole. For example, sending an army to the human territory and see what they would do. However, the demon race used the stupidest method. They were too arrogant. In fact, even if they lured the ancient race out, the situation would be completely different. Their strategy against Lin Feng was the same. Sending a demon emperor to fight against Lin Feng? What an idiot! Lin Feng was a freak, who even killed the shaman Emperor Jiang. Even if they wanted to fight him one-on-one, they should have sent the strongest great saint of the demon race instead of sending Niu Yunlei to his death. Thinking of this, Huang Jifu's face twitched. He pursed his lips, exasperated. Huff! Exhaling deeply, Huang Jifu shook his head in anger. However, he couldn't help but laugh. This was the demon race. If we let the demon race rule the Douling world, it'll be a joke. Huang Jifu snorted. He looked at the fierce battle on the battlefield. He had already made up his mind. Continue killing. The more you kill, the better. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me who wins because we'll be the ones who have the last laugh. Huang Jifu sneered. His figure was like a ghost as he disappeared from the battlefield. Uproar. Great shock. Who was Niu Yunlei? He was the emperor of the Dragon Bull clan. He had the most precious royal bloodline of the demon race. He was also the leader of the 4 demon emperors. No one would have thought that this powerful being, who was ranked in the top 5 of the demon race, would actually die at the beginning of the war. In a one-on-one battle, he was killed by a human powerhouse. His unwilling roar was deeply engraved in the hearts of every demon race powerhouse. They were all shocked beyond words. The demon race was full of confidence. No matter how many casualties they suffered, their morale would still be high. However, at this moment they felt a sense of fear and dread. Their morale plummeted. In a battle between 2 armies, the defeat of a general was a taboo. Anything could happen on the battlefield. What caused the collapse of the battle could be one of the small factors. Whether Demon Emperor Niu Yunlei's death was a blessing or a curse for the demon race was still unclear. However, one thing was for sure. The demon race commander was furious. Boom! A domineering aura exploded in the sky above the battlefield. The Grey Great Sage, who had been sitting at the back, could no longer bear it. Seeing the demon race's morale plummeting, he knew that if he did not act now, the situation would only get worse. A pair of eyes that contained deep gray energy flashed. He looked like a completely different person from before. In his hand there was a huge gray rod that was filled with a strange aura. Boom! The Grey Great Sage's aura soared to the sky. He finally made his move. The thick aura of death exploded, forming a terrifying explosion. The Grey Great Sage charged at Lin Feng like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 1646. Huang Jifu's evaluation was a little wrong. The demons were not stupid. They were just too arrogant and rash, so their reactions were a little slow. Although Demon King Bu Yunlei had died, Lin Feng had suffered some minor injuries. Demon King Xiong Bao and Deputy Commander Bull Demon had formed a pincer formation. Not only that, the Grey Great Sage, the commander of the demons in the distance, was also piercing through space like an arrow, completely exploding with extreme speed. The 3 great experts of the demon race were going against Lin Feng. They knew very well that the humans were just strong in appearance, just like the Aboriginals. As long as they could get close to the Aboriginals and get past the first obstacle, they would be able to wipe them all out. The humans were not much stronger than the Aboriginals. They only had one backbone, and that was the human king Lin Feng. As long as they killed Lin Feng, the humans would definitely lose. A 3-pronged pincer attack. Lin Feng's situation changed instantly, and it was extremely bad. However, this was completely within his expectations. Lin Feng was already prepared. Although he could temporarily not provoke the bull demon, Gu Xing's situation was getting worse and worse. He would probably be killed by the bull demon soon. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, his vitality would be greatly damaged, and he would definitely be severely injured. Logically speaking, since they were allies, he could not leave him in the lurch. Not to mention, Gu Xing's position was special. He could be said to be the most important link between the humans and the Aboriginals. Gu Xing was in danger because he wanted to help him. There was no need for him to fight the bull demon head-on. How others treat me is how I treat them. Lin Feng was not an ungrateful person. He completely ignored the enraged Xiong Bao and the Grey Great Sage, who was shooting at him like a heart-piercing arrow. His target was Gu Xing, who was on the verge of death. Perhaps he would be in danger instead of Gu Xing, but at least he would not die. As he sped forward, Lin Feng suddenly turned around and shouted, Rhenium Gold Battle Shield. The condensed power of metal instantly spread out from his hand, turning into a dark and solidified ancient shield. The strange patterns were mixed with strange colors, and the indescribable great Tao of metal flowed within the patterns of the shield. It was like a stream, but also like the meridians of the human body. The strong defensive power formed an oval-shaped air shield, and its defensive power could be seen clearly. Lin Feng had two great defensive techniques. Overall defense. Overall defense. It was a mountain of golden scales. Defense alone, it was a rhenium gold battle shield. Roar! His brown eyes flashed with a bloody light. Among the four demon emperors, Xiong Bao was the one who had the best relationship with Niu Yunlei. He had personally witnessed his big brother being killed. To Xiong Bao, it was the same as killing his family. His fighting spirit exploded, and his already terrifying strength increased by another level. Compared to the other bear clans, the tyrannical bear clan's strength lay in the word tyrannical. Brutal, ruthless, crazy. A crazy power flowed in his blood. Xiong Bao's strength was only slightly inferior to Rong Yunlei. At this moment, he seemed to have gone crazy. He even unleashed 150% of his strength. Langya, who was ranked 10th among the supreme battle spirits, flashed with a demonic light. It seemed to have gone crazy along with its master. The indigo grade flashed with a strange purple light, and it was forcefully raised by one grade. One with the weapon. This was a true fusion. It was a perfect fusion. I still underestimated him. Lin Feng frowned. In the blink of an eye, there was no time to dodge. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Outside his body, the Lei Jing true body appeared ferocious again. He knew Xiong Bao's strength very well. However, a battle was still a battle. He could not let his guard down at any moment. No one knew what would happen in the next second. Lin Feng, who had experienced so many battles, was very clear about this. Bang! There was a change in an instant. The two experts from the human race and the demon race clashed intensely. Xiong Bao was like a god descending from the heavens. His huge mace almost crushed Lin Feng's defense. No matter how strong the rhenium gold battle shield was, it was not as strong as Xiong Bao's terrifying strength. The moment the two weapons clashed, the rhenium gold battle shield was broken. However, Xiong Bao did not hurt Lin Feng. Illusory spear, attack. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The illusory spear that had already been condensed pierced out. Using the Pangu technique, the illusory spear followed him like a shadow. Spear force, spear aura. With Lin Feng's current spear arts realm, a casual spear strike was already at the level of a spear grandmaster. Bang! There was a violent clash. Lin Feng's face was slightly surprised. The web between his thumb and forefinger was deeply shaken. Even if the power of Xiong Bao's attack was weakened by the rhenium gold battle shield, the power of Xiong Bao's attack was still extremely terrifying. However, it was just right. Borrowing the powerful reaction force, Lin Feng shot out and separated from Xiong Bao in an instant. The blood gushing up to his throat was suppressed. Lin Feng's eyes were sharp and cold. At this moment, his speed exploded and he went straight for the bull demon. Whoosh! The distance between him and Xiong Bao was pulled apart. Even though he was surrounded by enemies, Lin Feng was still as calm as ever. If he continued to fight with an opponent like Xiong Bao, it would not do him any good. It was enough to pull away from him in a short confrontation. Because behind Xiong Bao, there was another expert chasing after him furiously. Cowardly bear, don't run if you have the guts! Wan Macho roared. The Zen bell shone with a solemn light and let out a heart-shaking sound. After colliding with Lin Feng's attack, the distance between Xiong Bao and Wan Macho instantly disappeared. A huge bell covered him, causing him to roar in anger. He waved Langya in his hand and no longer cared about Lin Feng. He had to get rid of this annoying fly behind him first. Whoosh! With the circulation of the power of heaven and earth, Lin Feng's meridians surged. With abundant qi, the illusory spear was condensed. It was much more powerful than when he fought Xiong Bao. Previously, he had only concealed part of his strength. However, he could not be careless when facing the bull demon. Lin Feng, who had been observing the bull demon for a long time, knew that the bull demon was no longer him in the thousand-snake acupoint. Now, like the great sage, his body was occupied by the aura of death and the gray energy. He had lost consciousness, but it was even more terrifying. Lin Feng shouted, "Brother Gu, let's go." His spear turned into a strong force that went past Gu Sheng and went straight for the bull demon's giant axe. Neither was willing to give an inch. Thunder from the sky. Lin Feng's strength was revealed at this moment. He no longer had to worry about the threat of Xiong Bao or the strongest Grey Great Sage. He knew very well that the strongest demon clan expert, the Grey Great Sage, would not be able to harass him in a short time. He would be busy. Boom! A shocking strike from the staff split heaven and earth. At this moment, all the demon clan experts were stunned. They saw two almost identical great sages standing opposite each other in the void. They had the same armor, the same giant staff, the same face, and the same powerful aura. The only difference was, the eyes of the two were clearly different. One was clear, shining, and domineering. The other was shining brightly, but it was full of killing intent. "Demon, give me back my body!" The great sage roared, and the power of the earth pillar instantly erupted. Chapter 1647. Peak Confrontation. The battle between the true and false great saints was like fire and water. One gave up his talent and relied on his astonishing willpower to break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly. As for the other, his strength gradually increased after the gray energy transformed his body. He went from relying on his undying body to defeating Gu Sheng in just a few months. No one knew the secret behind it. The only thing that was certain was, the Grey Great Saint was very strong. He was stronger than Gu Sheng and the original Great Saint. He was even stronger than the Witch Emperor Jiang Du. The moment he attacked, everyone knew who was stronger. The black rod carried lightning strikes that could even move the heavens. On the contrary, the true Great Saint who had merged with the Earth Pillar was all bark and no bite. Not only was he suppressed in terms of aura, but he was also suppressed in terms of strength. Even his attacks were much more hesitant. "He's here," Lin Feng said softly. He knew what had happened without even turning around. The Great Saint kept his promise and attacked at the most critical moment. He fought against the strongest demon race commander without hesitation. Of course, it was because of his personal reasons. However, it was undoubtedly good news for the humans and ancients. Other than him, who else could stop the Grey Great Saint? "He has changed a lot," Lin Feng said softly. In the past, he only knew how to charge forward and defeat his opponent with pure strength. Now, he had learned the true way of fighting. He could use his strength to overcome his opponent's weakness. Although he had broken out of his previous self and learned how to cultivate the power of heaven and earth, he had just started cultivating not long ago. In addition, he did not have a systematic cultivation method. His foundation was undoubtedly much weaker. Therefore, the Great Saint's strength could not be unleashed for long. 3 moves. He only had the strength of 3 perfect moves. Therefore, he could not fight the Grey Great Saint head-on from the beginning. He had to choose the best time to attack. There was no need to care too much. In the past, the Grey Great Saint was a very strong enemy. Now, he would also be a very strong companion. The one he had to face was the demon race vice-commander with an astonishing aura, Bull Demon. An expert who had also changed a lot. He was a senior and even his benefactor. "Excuse me." Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a sharp light, the illusory spear in his hand flickered, aiming directly at the Bull Demon. The giant axe's power overflowed into the heavens, causing the mountains to crumble and the earth to split. Lin Feng's spear was not the slightest bit inferior. It pierced through the waves, piercing through heaven and earth. The two great experts instantly clashed, causing the entire battlefield to shake. Boom! Strong against strong. The weak against the weak. War had its own rules. General against general, soldier against soldier. This was definitely the most powerful battle that the Demon Clan had ever seen in the Third Great War of the Witch Demon Clan. 3 of the 4 demon emperors had come, and only Fox Princess was left to guard the sea. 3 of the 5 demon kings had come, and 6 of the 12 demon stars had come. It could be said that more than 50% of the demon race's combat power had come. The absolute suppressive power of a sage king made the demons extremely confident. In fact, if it weren't for the suppression of the ancient race's heavenly gods, the human army would have been destroyed by the demon race's army long ago. In terms of raw strength, the demons were too strong. If they were fighting on an endless plain, the demon race would have already gained the upper hand. However, although the divine realm was small, it was just right for the ancient race to defend. The larger the area, the more disadvantageous it would be for the ancient race. One by one, the demon race experts broke through the obstacles, but they were blocked by the human experts. Fong Ning, Little Jian, Thousand Love Emperor, Thorn. The number of human powerhouses was indeed far less than that of the Demon Clan, but there were a few Saint King-level powerhouses who were particularly strong, especially when it came to the combination skill. Thorn and Shijishin had gone through many adventures, and now their combined strength was stronger than Xiao Jian and Qian Lian Huang alone. Stall. Stall. To the humans, there was only one thing they needed to do now: stall until the end. The longer they delayed, the more the ancient race's heavenly gods would be exhausted, and the greater the demon race's losses would be. If they could stall until the demon race retreated, they would be able to win this battle. One had to know that as long as the ancient race experts were given enough time, they could quickly replenish the astral source energy that they had lost. But what about the demon race? The dead demon race experts would never be able to return from the Yellow Springs. This was the real difference. This logic was simple, clear, and direct. It had been set in the discussion before the battle. What the humans needed to do was not to take the initiative to attack, but to defend continuously. 3 in a small formation, 5 in a large formation, to block the attacks of the demon race experts. Until now, this strategy had been effective. The demon race had suffered great losses. How did Senior Bull become so strong? Lin Feng was extremely puzzled as he fought and retreated. How strong was the bull demon? Being able to become the deputy commander of the demon race was enough to show that although the demon race's bloodline was important, the most fundamental thing was still strength. The bull demon was stronger than the 4 demon emperors. Back then, he had only lost to a great sage. At the Thousand Snake Cave, he was indeed unable to reach Senior Bull Demon's level. However, with his current strength, even if he could not completely defeat Senior Bull Demon, it should not be difficult for him to win. However, things did not go as he wished. Hong! It was another all-or-nothing attack that shook the heavens and earth. Lin Feng's chest churned and his face turned pale. He could indeed counterattack, but what would the result be? Lin Feng's eyes were deep. At this moment, his left hand was dripping with blood. The injury on his left shoulder was shocking. It was not light. However, the bull demon was not much better. His iron-like body had a terrifying wound on his lower abdomen. Blood kept gushing out. In the previous attack, both sides were injured. To be precise, Lin Feng was the one who was injured. Ugh! Lin Feng pursed his lips, feeling hesitant. His previous counterattack had indeed severely injured the bull demon. If he wanted to, he could even kill him. However, he could not do it, even if they were on opposite side. The bull demon had completely lost his mind. He was not afraid of death at all. His method of exchanging injury for injury made it difficult for him to advance or retreat. He could either kill him or injure him. However, he would also be injured. His strength is not weaker than the witch Emperor Jiang. Lin Feng thought to himself. After this period of fighting, he had a good grasp of the bull demon's strength. Using the Tao of strength to the extreme, coupled with the uniqueness of the Qi of death, it was like adding wings to a tiger. The bull demon's attainments in the Tao of strength could even reach the starry sky level at any time. He was even stronger than before he lost his mind. However, this kind of strength was somewhat inexplicable and unimaginable. It was as if it did not belong to him at all. What should he do? Lin Feng relied on his speed and agility. Although he was in a difficult situation, it was not a big problem. However, there was no benefit in dragging this out. Wan Macho was already in danger because of Xiong Bao. The attacks of the demon clan were getting stronger and stronger. The humans could not stop the demon clan's shocking number of Saint King level experts. They were losing their advantage bit by bit. At this moment, he had to rely on himself to turn the tide. However, Senior Bull in front of him could neither attack nor retreat. Lin Feng's brows were tightly knitted. At this moment, bang! A shocking collision sounded behind him. Chapter 1648. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. There was no doubt that the collision of such powerful auras could only be caused by two great sages. The only question was the real great sage who could execute 3 perfect moves or the fake great sage who had the upper hand? The answer was revealed in an instant. As Lin Feng tangled with the bull demon, he sensed his surroundings and never relaxed. They were evenly matched. No, strictly speaking, the real great sage's situation is much worse. Lin Feng thought to himself. In terms of aura and even visual judgment, the two of them were evenly matched. However, the real great sage had consumed 1/3 of his strength. Moreover, it was the first time he had used his true strength. It could be said that it was unexpected. However, it did not achieve the expected effect. The great sage was only pushed back. Although they were both injured, the fake great sage was naturally superior in terms of recovery ability. The death aura could revive the spirits of the dead. How terrifying was that? Its recovery ability was naturally astonishing. As expected, a ray of light flashed in the fake great sage's eyes with some doubt and surprise. However, he recovered his calmness in an instant. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. The black giant rod drew the power of heaven and attacked again. Whether it was power or aura, it was superior compared to before. He was using his true strength. The situation was worrying. Although he was already mentally prepared, the fake great sage's strength was far beyond his expectations. He estimated that he was at least 1 level stronger than the bull demon. Lin Feng frowned slightly. The temporary change in the fake great sage's expression appeared in his mind. He faintly felt a chill in his heart. He had changed a lot. The last time he saw him, his eyes were still hazy, just like the bull demon now. However, this time, he seemed to have suddenly gained consciousness and wisdom. It was as if a heavenly treasure had given birth to an artifact spirit. This change was very unexpected. However, it was reasonable when he thought about it carefully. Even a heavenly treasure could give birth to an artifact spirit. Why couldn't the body of an expert? However, time was too short. He already has consciousness. Moreover, it doesn't seem like a newborn consciousness. It has the experience of a veteran on the battlefield. It's cold and dark. Lin Feng was gloomy and instantly judged. The terrifying demon in the demon race's forbidden area appeared in his mind. Abyssal demon. It's him. Lin Feng's heart trembled, but he quickly rejected this ridiculous idea. If it was really that abyssal demon, then the strength of the fake great sage would not be limited to what it was now. It would be easy for the fake great sage to kill her. The strength of the soul not only allowed one to unleash the strongest power of the body, but also allowed one to comprehend the mysteries. One had to know that he had only been glared at that day, and as a result, the shield of truth shattered. Seriously injured. And this was probably just the tip of the iceberg. Phew, he breathed a sigh of relief, and his thoughts instantly returned to normal. In front of him, the giant axe mixed with the starry sky level path of force came straight at him. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with slight hesitation, but he instantly pursed his lips and made a decision. He could no longer retreat. The scales of war were gradually tilting towards the demons. If he continued to tangle with the bull demon, the situation would only become more and more disadvantageous. Regardless of which aspect it was, both the humans and the ancients were at a disadvantage. In order to change the direction of this war, the most important factor was him. "I'm sorry, Senior Ox." Lin Feng gritted his teeth and circulated the Pangu technique to the limit in his body. The rich qi of heaven and earth instantly surged out. He could not drag this on any longer. He had to end this quickly. Fight. Lin Feng was going all out. On one side was his savior, and on the other side was the entire human and ancient alliance. He had no choice. In his position, there were many times when he had to make a choice. The reason why Lin Feng did not want to have a real battle with the bull demon was because weapons had no eyes. If he went all out, the result would most likely be the death of one party. In particular, the bull demon had completely lost his rationality and became a puppet of the death aura. He was like a killing machine without any emotions or desires. If Senior Bull Demon had died and his soul had dispersed, he would not want his body to be used and defiled after his death. If he's not dead yet, then his soul should still be in his body. It's just that he's being suppressed by the qi of death. If I can kill this puppet, I might be able to rescue Senior Bull Demon King. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and no longer hesitated. Although the second possibility was very dangerous, and it was very likely that the battle between two experts could not be stopped, it would lead to death. However, this was the only way left for him. "I'm sorry, Senior Ox." Lin Feng gritted his teeth and said. Clang! Bang! Boom! How powerful was Lin Feng when he went all out? Lin Feng didn't hold back at all. Facing the Bull Demon King, who had already been reduced to a puppet, Lin Feng circulated the Panga mantra to the extreme. The power of heaven and earth erupted wave after wave, completely ignoring the Bull Demon King's attacks. Lin Feng met the Bull Demon King's attacks head-on. Puff! Lin Feng spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were sharp. The illusory spear in his hand moved crazily around the bull demon's chest wound. Blood splattered everywhere, forming an extremely fierce vortex. Lin Feng did not show any mercy. Since he had decided to fight, he would fight to his heart's content. His left hand blocked the bull demon's attack again, but the price was destroyed, sacrificing his left hand and shoulder in exchange for a rather impressive result. Directly injuring the bull demon. Roar! The bull demon roared furiously. A faint shadow condensed behind him, and he stood up again in disbelief. The thick gray aura wrapped around his body, and the wound on his chest healed bit by bit. It was hair-raising. There were no less than 10 wounds on his body, and 3 of them were fatal. If it was any other expert from the demon clan, they would have died many times over. However, the bull demon stood up again and again. It was as if he had an immortal body. He could not be killed. Damn it! Lin Feng clenched his fists. The illusory spear in front of him flashed, just like his current state of mind. It was not that he could not kill him, but he still had a sliver of hope in his heart. He hoped that the bull demon's injuries would be so serious that he could no longer fight, so serious that the aura of death in his body would dissipate, allowing the bull demon to regain his senses. However, reality was cruel. The gigantic black shadow in front of him was breathing heavily as it unleashed an unimaginable power. Just the loss of blood was enough to cause an expert to lose his ability to fight. However, the strength of the Bull Demon King at this moment was almost the same as before. He was still as ruthless as before, still as heavy as before, unyielding and unyielding. As an opponent, he was definitely worthy of respect. But at this moment, tears welled up in Lin Feng's eyes, moistening the corners of his eyes. "I'm sorry." The tears in Lin Feng's eyes instantly condensed into a raging fighting spirit. Stubbornly and resolutely, just like the spear in Lin Feng's hand, he pressed forward with indomitable will. There was no turning back. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Only the afterimage of the spear was left on the battlefield, illuminating the sky. Boom! Everything vanished like smoke in thin air. Chapter 1649. He won. Lin Feng floated in the air. His left hand hung limply, but his right hand was clenched into a fist, trembling nonstop. He endured and retreated, but in the end, he still killed him. That spear broke through all of Senior Bull Demon's defenses. Even his violent path of strength was destroyed. The crazy power of heaven and earth almost crushed the Bull Demon's body. The wound on his chest was glaring. A huge hole was opened, and blood splattered all over the ground. Bull Demon dead. Drip. Lin Feng's tears fell, filled with remorse and guilt. This was the first time he had killed someone he didn't want to kill, but the cruelty of reality forced him to do so. Perhaps the spirit of Senior Bull Demon King in heaven hoped that he could kill his enemy with his own hands, protect his body, and protect his last dignity, but to kill his savior with his own hands, that kind of guilt attacked his heart, and the pain was unbearable. Lin Feng's gaze landed on the place where Bull Demon died. His huge body was lying there, calm and natural. There was no trace of the previous ruthless aura, no trace of that annoying gray aura. At this moment, the Bull Demon King was the real Bull Demon King, an indomitable master, a martial artist who lived for battle, a martial artist who lived for battle. "I'm sorry." Lin Feng closed his eyes and bowed deeply. At this moment, his heart seemed to have been cleansed. It was a different feeling. It was very uncomfortable, but it was a process that one had to go through in life. Not everything could be completely controlled by oneself. Even if one's strength was monstrous, even if one had the power to change one's fate, there were still many things that one couldn't completely control. This was the reality. Thinking it through was like walking up a flight of stairs. One just had to step over it. If one couldn't think it through, one would walk into a dead end. One might even go berserk. Lin Feng was obviously the former. Not for other reasons, but because of his strong willpower. He clearly knew what he should do and what he shouldn't do. There were some things that he had no choice about. This was the moment that determined the fate of his race. As the human emperor, he would never allow himself to forget the public interest for personal reasons. Since he was in his position, he had to fulfill his responsibilities. Pa! Lin Feng opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. He quickly figured it out. But in that instant, a blinding white light flashed, and a familiar energy appeared. Lin Feng was slightly startled, and the Bull Demon's corpse in front of him disappeared without a trace. With his eyes wide open, Lin Feng was stunned for a moment before he instantly reacted. He could not help but be delighted as he softly called out, "Duo duo? You're a grown man, yet you're still crying. How embarrassing. Don't say that you're my master when you get out." Duoduo's voice sounded in his mind. Lin Feng didn't care, but he knew Duoduo's character like the back of his hand. He asked, "Can Senior Bull Demon be saved?" "Of course." Duoduo's voice was still calm as he said, "It's just a destroyed body. As long as there's enough energy, it can be repaired in the Netherworld ship." "So what if it's a new body in the Starry Sky realm?" As long as his soul isn't destroyed, he won't die. Lin Feng was overjoyed when he heard this. So Senior Bull's soul isn't dead? He's very lucky, so he won't die for the time being. Duo said, it's just that he's been corroded by the death energy for a long time, and his injuries are very serious. Fortunately, his willpower is quite strong, so his soul isn't completely destroyed. Now that you've killed his body, the death energy can no longer be replenished. As long as his willpower is firm, it won't be long before he can completely expel the death energy from his soul. Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. So that's how it is. After all, Bull Demon was able to display such great strength, so it wouldn't make sense to say that he didn't have a soul. Duo thought that he had lost his mind and was taken over by the death energy, but it turned out that his soul was suppressed by the death energy. Just as he had deduced, killing Bull Demon had actually helped him. Fighting poison with poison. That's a mistake. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. The guilt in his heart instantly vanished. Even though he was in the middle of a chaotic battlefield, it was as if he was looking at the blue sky and white clouds. His state of mind was extremely comfortable and natural. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, Lin Feng frowned and said softly, Duo, why didn't you tell me before? Why should I tell you? Duo chuckled. Lin Feng couldn't help but be at a loss for words, but he couldn't refute it. This is also a rare type of tempering. Duo spoke casually, and he spoke with the attitude of an experienced person. The tempering of your state of mind will help improve your willpower. In any case, I already guessed that this would be the result. Now, it's the best of both worlds. It made sense, but it also seemed like he was throwing a tantrum. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He was helpless against Duo. But no matter what, it was all thanks to him this time. Thanks, Duo. Lin Feng smiled faintly. His eyes flashed and his ears twitched. In an instant, his figure disappeared like a stream of light. In the blink of an eye, it was as if he had teleported behind a figure as tall as Mount Tai. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. Xiong Bao. He was one of the 4 demonic emperors and a powerful existence of the violent bear tribe. Illusory spear. Lin Feng's hands moved like lightning as he activated the Pangu mantra. The meridians in his body moved like a machine, and the power of heaven and earth instantly condensed in his hands. However, this time it was much slower than before. The 2 consecutive battles, especially the battle with the Bull Demon, had consumed a lot of his power of heaven and earth. Unlike the main body, there was a limit to the power of heaven and earth of his doppelganger. Consecutive battles weren't easy to fight. Of course, it wasn't difficult to solve Wan Macho's predicament at this moment. Brother Wan, let's go! Lin Feng shouted as he faced Xiong Bao without hesitation. In a short time, Wan Macho had suffered serious injuries. Perhaps only he and Fang Ning were capable of facing Xiong Bao alone. However, Fang Ning had a heavy responsibility. He had to lead the Water Curtain Cave, and was responsible for the safety of the ancient clan's divine realm experts together with Qian Lian Huang. Therefore, the heavy responsibility of delaying Xiong Bao fell on Wan Macho's shoulders. The result was gratifying. Okay. Wan Macho's face was pale. His eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. The Zen spirit bell collided with Xiong Bao's languor again. Wan Macho snorted and used the powerful force to escape. This made Xiong Bao roar in anger. How could he not be angry when he saw his prey escape? Of course, he could chase after Wan Macho, but at this moment behind him, there was a murderous god eyeing him. Lin Feng. A twist. The death of the Demon Clan's deputy commander, Bull Demon, was a huge nightmare to the Demon Clan. First, Niu Yunlei, one of the 4 emperors, was killed. Then, the deputy commander was killed. Coupled with the battle between the real and fake commanders, the Demon Clan's army was filled with doubts and doubts. The morale of the demon clan was shaken. The high morale from before had long disappeared. Coupled with the suppression of the ancient clan's divine realm experts and the desperate resistance of the human experts, the demon clan didn't have the upper hand in the battle between the top combatants and the battlefield. How could they not be shaken? The demon clan was also a sentient and intelligent creature. The demon clan's deputy commander has been killed by our army. Everyone, let's cheer for Emperor Lin. Kill the Dragon Bull clan's demon emperor first, then kill the demon clan's deputy commander. Next, whose turn will it be? Ha 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 ha. They laughed heartily and wantonly. Under the instructions of Thousand Love Empress, some of the human experts who were proficient in the demon race's language used words to attack the demon race experts. This had a huge impact on the morale of the demon race. Not only that, Lin Feng's consecutive victories had also encouraged the humans and the ancient race. Previously, the ancient race had been suspicious of the humans. Now, all of them seemed as though they had been injected with chicken blood. They had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Compared to the humans, their hatred for the demon clan was deeper and more intense. Not to mention the accumulated hatred from the Great Witch Demon War. Just the Third Great Witch Demon War alone had destroyed many of their homes and killed many of their clansmen. The ancient clan experts mustered all their strength and unleashed their abilities to the limit to kill the demon clan. This enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. Boom, boom, boom. Countless demon clan experts were blasted into pieces. Although the demon clan had tried their best to disperse, they still suffered heavy losses. In particular, the successive defeats had caused their morale to plummet. The number of casualties was at least 20% higher than normal. However, war ultimately depended on one's strength. Even if the human experts had countless astral treasure puppets and the ancient clan experts, the demon clan's strength was relatively strong. They had the largest army in the entire Douling world. Saints and sage kings broke through the front line one after another and entered the divine domain's perimeter. Gradually, it became difficult for the human powerhouses to defend themselves, and it was difficult for them to do anything. The number of enemies was simply too great. The most troublesome thing was that the ancient clan's heavenly gods had expended a lot of their strength. The massacre was coming to an end. One had to know that the number of ancient clan experts was less than half of their peak. Many ancient clan experts had already died in the hands of the demon clan. Especially after the southern ancient region was destroyed, the ancient clan's heavenly gods, who had the strongest long-range attacks, were almost completely wiped out. In addition, because of the ancient clan's stubbornness and pride, they had suffered many setbacks. When they fought against the human alliance, they only had 30% of their strength left. Even Gu Xing had less than 30% of his strength left. Rip! A terrifying light flashed and drew a bloody arc. An ancient clan heavenly god died with an unwilling expression. The first ancient clan heavenly god to die. Pung! 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 The continuous attacks went straight for the wolf clan expert who had taken the unorthodox route, killing him in an instant. However, the dead were already dead and could not be revived. Most importantly, this was not only the first ancient clan expert to be killed, but it was also a signal. A signal for the demon clan experts to counterattack. After continuous attempts, sprints, and battles of attrition, they finally found a golden opportunity. The ancient clan was almost exhausted. As for the humans, it was even harder to protect them all. In an instant, whoosh, whoosh, beams of cold light flashed. This sudden attack by the wolf race expert completely broke the balance of the battle. The originally low morale was instantly restored. The eyes of the demon race expert turned red as he howled in excitement. He was like a swarm of locusts pressing down, causing the expressions of the ancient race experts to change. The majestic demon clan army was unstoppable. They were like sharp knives stabbing out. The humans and ancient clan were in danger. However, at this moment a strange scene occurred. Chapter 1650. Whoosh whoosh. Rumble. Like a tide, countless powerful existences with gray auras surged out in an instant. Among them, there were experts from the Demon Clan, the Sorcerer Clan, and even many experts from the neutral clans. Although there were not many of them, all of them were at least saint-level existences, and many of them were even saint kings. Every one of them exuded a strong aura of death. Everyone was stunned when they rushed out in group. How could the experts from the Sorcerer Clan and the Demon Clan work together? Furthermore, including the experts from the neutral clans, their goal was clear and simple. They went straight for the army of experts from the Demon Clan. 1 against 1, 2 against 1. Their coordination was perfect. The high-profile intervention of this army of experts caused the situation to change abruptly, and the situation changed abruptly. What was going on? The experts from the ancient clan and the humans were stunned. Things happened too suddenly. They did not know how to react. Especially the experts from the ancient clan. They did not know whether to attack or not. They stared at each other with their eyes wide open. What kind of trouble was this? Don't worry, everyone. They are all under my control. A calm voice spread out like a lake. It fell into the ears of every expert from the ancient clan and the humans. It was clear and natural. There were not many people in the Do Ling world who had such powerful abilities. This familiar voice was on the verge of being heard. Lin Feng. Whoosh, whoosh. Everyone looked toward the source of the voice. They saw Lin Feng floating in the air. He was covered in blood. His black robe was dyed red. What was shocking was that his left hand was dangling in the air. His left shoulder was severely injured. His face was pale. However, his bright eyes were still full of power. His aura was overwhelming. He was a natural-born monarch. Even though he was injured, he was still above everyone else. No one doubted his strength or his ability at the moment, including every word he said. It was not because of anything else. It was because of him. It was because of his name. Lin Feng. His name had shocked the entire Do Ling world. It was because of his existence that the entire human race rose to power. It was because of his existence that the demon race feared him. It was also because of his existence that this war happened. After killing the 2 great rankers of the Demon Clan and forcing back Xiongbao, one of the 4 emperors of the Demon Clan, Lin Feng's fame had already completely surpassed that of the Witch Emperor Jiang, and he sat on the seat of the strongest. As long as Lin Feng didn't die, the human race would never die. He did not explain too much, nor did he need to. Everything that was happening before his eyes was the best answer. This was the first time these undead powerhouses that were born in the Shield of Truth appeared on the battlefield. They only had the simplest of ideologies when they were awakened. From the state of the bull demon, the origin of these undead powerhouses' existence could be deduced. They were all possessed by the aura of death, and their souls were corroded and their bodies occupied. In fact, some of them were, and some of them were not. The best time for the aura of death to occupy the body was when the soul was severely injured and on the verge of death. At this time, the soul's resistance was the weakest, and it was the easiest to be invaded. The bull demon was like this. However, a corpse that had just died not long ago was also not bad. The consciousness of the soul had been extinguished, but there was still a trace of aura. The aura of death could break through and invade. The stronger the person, the longer they could maintain this aura of death. It depended on the strength of their willpower. The difference was that the aura of death still relied on the soul to control this body. Therefore, the fusion of souls on the verge of death was better, and their strength was stronger. On the other hand, the strength of souls that had just died was much worse. However, even if they only had 10% of their strength, a saint was still a saint, and a saint king was still a saint king. Coupled with an immortal body, their strength would not be weakened too much. Fight. The undead army that Lin Feng obtained in the demon clan's forbidden grounds by accident had become a weapon to turn the tables. As soon as these wolf-like experts entered, they completely extinguished the flames of the demon clan. The experts of the demon clan did not know what was going on, and many of them died inexplicably in the hands of their companions. Little did they know, these companions had long lost their consciousness. They only had a simple ideology, and they were completely under Lin Feng's control. Now, in simple terms, it could be summed up in 2 words: kill, kill, kill non-stop. There were no other requirements. Lin Feng did not care about the life and death of these undead experts. Together with countless divine beasts and ferocious beasts, they formed an army to intercept and kill the demon clan. Suspended high in the air, Lin Feng thought carefully, but he did not dare to be careless. After all, this was the first time he had personally controlled this undead army. It was not easy. Although he only gave them the simplest orders, the undead army was so large that it was quite difficult to control. If the main body controls it, it should be much easier. Lin Feng thought lightly. After all, the doppelganger was a heavenly martial artist, and his control of souls was only at the beginning. Fortunately, after careful consideration, there were not many mistakes in his control. What a pity! If I had more time, I might have been able to kill Xiongbao. Controlling the undead army, Lin Feng thought it was a pity. Previously, time was too tight. In addition, he was heavily injured and had consumed a lot of the power of heaven and earth. Although he had defeated Xiongbao, it was not easy to kill an expert of this level. Like Niu Yunlei, Xiongbao also had his trump cards. Although it was possible to kill him, he would lose time. Now, it was a race against time. Every moment was crucial. If he had come a little later, the heavenly gods of the ancient race would have been killed or injured. That was not what he wanted. On the battlefield, he often had to make choices. Just like when he killed the bull demon, one wrong step could change the situation. Now was the right time. Come on. The longer you delay the demon clan, you will lose even more miserably. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Just now, he had ordered the ancient race experts to rest in batches to recover their strength. As long as he could delay for enough time and wait for the ancient race experts to recover, the demon clan experts would not be able to make a comeback. It would be better if they retreated. Although many of the ancient race experts had died, the small spirit gathering array in this battle seemed to be fully charged. In less than 10 days, the ancient race experts would be able to recover their strength. As for the ancient race experts, so far, only one heavenly god had died. What an impressive battle record! However, it was too early to determine the outcome of the battle. Lin Feng's expression did not change. He was as steady as a rock. Countless battles had been turned around because of carelessness. Naturally, he would not make such a low-level mistake, especially when the ancient race and the humans did not have much bargaining chip. They could not afford to lose even one battle. If they lost one battle, they would go bankrupt. In this battle, they could only win, not lose. Hand-to-hand combat. Without the help of the ancient race experts, Lin Feng controlled the undead army as the main force. Fang Ning and Qianlian Huang led the ancient race experts as support. They fought the demon clan head-on. Large numbers of mythical beasts and ferocious beasts charged into the demon clan army, causing chaos. They were very strong. The demon clan army was completely stunned in an instant. Lin Feng's attack came too suddenly. Before they could even react, they had already suffered heavy casualties. It was especially hard to tell the gender of half of the demon cultivators. The demon army was in chaos. They didn't know who to help. There were even more who were afraid that there might be a demon traitor beside them. The demon clan was terrified. It has a miraculous effect, Lin Feng said with a smile. He did not think too much about it before. However, in a real battle, it had an unexpected effect. It was a huge blow to the demon clan army. Indeed, some experts could tell the difference between the two types of demon clan experts. However, more than 99% of the demon clan experts could not. With this thought in mind, Lin Feng would not let go of this great opportunity. Soon, he adjusted his strategy. With the undead experts of the demon clan as the foundation, he directly attacked the demon clan army, causing a huge mess in an instant. The mythical beasts and ferocious beasts kept charging, causing the demon clan army to be even more chaotic. As for the wizard clan and the neutral undead experts, they clashed head-on with the demon clan army. As for the human experts, they began to retreat in batches after gaining the upper hand to preserve their vitality. If the undead experts died, it was not a big deal. As for the mythical beasts and ferocious beasts, they were just the incarnations of astral origin energy. If one died, there would be millions of others. Attrition. War was a war of attrition. Undead army? Humans, how can there be an undead army? On a mountain peak far away, several figures were standing. The one who spoke was Huang Jifu, who was disguised as a Tiger Clan warrior. At this moment, he was standing on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. The elites of the Extreme Clan gathered behind him. Pairs of eyes stared at the battlefield in shock. Huang Jifu was very knowledgeable about corpses. He was a very ambitious person. He joined the Extreme Clan so that he could unify the Dou-Ling world one day. However, he knew the major flaw of the Neutral Clan. Not to mention the serious conflicts between the neutral clans in Tianling world, just the difficulty of reproduction was enough to determine the neutral clan's fate. They could not unify the entire Dou-Ling world. The conflicts could be mediated, and other methods could be used to ease the tension. For example, the existence of the Extreme Clan. However, how could the flaw of the neutral clans be changed? Countless geniuses of the neutral clans could not find a solution. Huang Jifu could not think of a solution either. However, he chose another path. The path of the undead. Huang Jifu was very smart to study the method of controlling the undead. He used this method to make up for the biggest flaw of the neutral clans in war. Although he still could not control a large number of undead experts, he chose to walk the path of elites as a compromise. After all, the strength of the saint and sage kings was still the main factor in war. He had some success. Huang Jifu treated this as an extreme secret. Even many elites of the Extreme Clan did not know about it. However, what did he see? Lin Feng, a mere human, was able to control so many undead experts. Huang Jifu was completely shocked. Others might not be able to see it clearly, but Lin Feng could clearly see that there seemed to be a string attached to each of the undead, connecting them to Lin Feng. And this string was actually energy. This method was similar to that of the puppet masters, and it was evolved. Human. Huang Jifu's eyes flashed. Killing intent seeped out. At this moment, his desire to kill the human was at least 100 times stronger than before. He felt deeply threatened. "Looks like our plan needs to change," Huang Jifu said in a low voice. Chapter 1651. Time continued to pass. The battle between the true and false great sage was like an abyss of suffering. After failing to gain the upper hand for the first time, the great sage became even more cautious. After all, he only had 2 chances left. Shuttling through the demon race army, the gray great sage was helpless and fell into a chase. Unknowingly, he had done Lin Feng a great favor. If the gray great sage had directly fought with Lin Feng, the human army would have suffered and would have no time to control the undead experts. The current situation would have favored the demon race army. But now, these undead experts were either dead or injured, but they had already made a contribution. Each of them had brought a lot of combat power to the demon race. It could be said that they had died a worthy death. With the death of these combat power, Lin Feng's control became easier. From time to time, he would put some newly dead corpses into the Shield of Truth. Although there was a limit to the death aura in the Shield of Truth, it could be recharged. Having tasted the sweetness, Lin Feng would not let go of such a good opportunity. The corpses of the demon race experts entered the Shield of Truth and were instantly corroded by the death aura. As long as there was enough time, they would quickly turn into new combat power, forming an endless cycle. As for the dead human experts, Lin Feng also took them away. It was not that he wanted to turn them into undead experts, but he did not want them to be used by others. There were corpses of experts from various races in the demon race's forbidden grounds, proving that other than himself, there were others who knew how to create undead experts. These dead human experts were all heroes. No matter what, they could not rest in peace after death and be used by others. One had to know that when the soul was corroded by the death aura, having consciousness was equivalent to fusing with it. Once they died again, that was really the death of the soul. It was equivalent to a reincarnation cycle, but it was the final death. Moreover, they died with great reluctance. With his own strength, he blocked the demon race army. Lin Feng's sudden appearance eased the situation between the human and ancient race alliance. The ancient race experts seized the time to recover their star source energy, and the human experts were also on guard. Under this situation, the gap between them was shrinking bit by bit, like a rolling snowball. Good news came one after another. While Lin Feng was suppressing the demon race's army, the human experts had killed many of the demon race's top experts, and their battle merits were considerable. Fang Ning, Qian Lian Huang, Jie Ji, and the others had killed countless monster race sages and Saint King realm experts. Especially with Jie Ji and Shi Jixin's cooperation, they even managed to kill a monster star. Although there was an element of luck involved, the battle achievements were great. Just a moment ago, Wan Macho launched a sneak attack and killed another demon star of the demon clan. There were a total of 12 demonic stars, and 2 had been killed in this battle. It was enough to make the demon race bleed. Although Fang Ning and Qian Lianhuang did not kill the demon star powerhouses, the two of them were powerful existences that could withstand the demon king powerhouses. Moreover, they were the commanders of the two armies. Could be said that they were the real heroes behind the scenes. The war had reached its climax. With the death of a large number of undead experts, the demon race finally managed to turn the situation around, but this time they had lost all their advantages. Not to mention Lin Feng's presence, the ancient race's heavenly deities had already recovered a small amount of astral origin energy in a short period of time. Although it was only 10 to 20%, to the demonic beasts, this 10 to 20% was enough to cause a large number of deaths. Most importantly, after experiencing continuous fierce battles, defeats, and ambushes, the demon race's morale had dropped to a freezing point. They were already doubting whether they could still win. Could they break through the defenses of the humans and the ancient race? Roar! A furious roar came from the demon race's army. It was deafening. That was the order given by the demon race's commander. It was decisive and direct. With the Blood Tiger Emperor as the commander, the demon race threw away all their burdens and attacked like crazy. Although the strength of the humans and the ancient race had shocked the demon race's army, it did not shock him. The Grey Great Sage was at ease in the battle against the true Great Sage. He was not affected by the unfavorable situation and made the best decision. Retreat? Why not take a gamble? Right now, the demon race no longer had a path of retreat. They were going to fight to the death. Good. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but he was not afraid. The demon race could still preserve some of their strength by retreating, but it was a wise decision to continue fighting. After all, although the ancient race had bought some time to recover, it was still too early to say that they had fully recovered. If the ancient race retreated and allowed them to rest for a few days and recover to their peak state, then the demon race's experts who had died in the previous battle would have died in vain. Even so, the advantage of the humans and the ancient race's alliance was obvious. In his opinion, the demon race did not even have a 10% chance of winning. However, it was impossible to win this battle cleanly. Facing the demon race's experts who were unafraid of death, it was inevitable that they would break through. He could only hope that the great sage could delay them for a while. With him around, it was not a big problem for him to fight against 10,000 or even 100. Every time he killed a demon race expert, the human race's losses would be reduced. Come on, demon race. Lin Feng was full of confidence. At this moment, the number of undead experts under his control had decreased by 2/3. It was very easy for him. Most of his heart force could be used for sneak attacks to kill the demon race experts who were trying to break through the encirclement. To deal with them, just the combination of physical strength and starry sky level spear techniques was enough. Clang! The world annihilation spear flashed with indigo light. Its ability, Doomsday Darkness, was instantly activated. It released layers of black fog that enveloped Lin Feng, making him look like a demon god. Slaughter mode was activated once again. To deal with ordinary demon race experts, Lin Feng did not need to use moves like the illusory spear, which consumed a lot of the power of the heavens and the earth. The remaining power of the heavens and the earth was very precious and could not be wasted. At this moment, the demon race's strongest expert was still alive and kicking. Other than himself, no one was his opponent. Kill. The ancient race had activated their defense mode again. However, this time was different. With Lin Feng in charge, the ancient race experts were full of confidence and attacked more decisively. Lin Feng also fully unleashed his combat strength. The world annihilation spear in his hand was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Every time it appeared on the battlefield, it would take the life of a demon race expert. He was invincible, just like the god of war. Lin Feng killed so many demons that they trembled with fear. Because of his reputation, every demon race expert panicked when they saw Lin Feng without fighting. Many of them were killed before they could even attack. However, the strength of one person was limited. The demon race's charge covered a large area. Some ancient race experts were still attacked and were seriously injured or even killed. Something's not right. Something's not right. Lin Feng killed another demon race expert. His expression changed slightly. There were so many demon race experts that it was a little strange. There were so many of them. Moreover, the few he killed were very strange. The one he killed just now did not have a single drop of blood. One might be a fluke, but 2, 3, 4, he had already killed 5 demon race experts, but there was no blood. This? Lin Feng's eyes widened. He instantly reacted. Could it be an undead expert? Chapter 1652. Change. The sudden change startled Lin Feng, and uneasiness rose in his heart. The undead had always been a thorn in his heart. What he saw in the forbidden land of the demon race was still clearly imprinted in his mind. There was no doubt about the existence of death energy, and the ability to resurrect was even more foreseeable. In fact, some of the undead in the forbidden land of the demon race had almost been resurrected, and he had only taken a small portion of them. I didn't expect the demon race's undead army to awaken so quickly. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. The reason why he had only taken a small portion of them that day was that he had only taken Sage King-level corpses, not quantity. On the other hand, he was afraid of the world-destroying demon god in the depths of the forbidden land of the demon race. At the same time, he did not want to expose the fact that he had entered the forbidden land of the demon race. But, basically, he had already taken all the Sage King level corpses, and only the Sage King level corpses were left. Why did so many Sage King level undead suddenly appear now? Even if the demon race obtained new corpses and began to cultivate them again to absorb the death energy, it should not have taken them so quickly. Lin Feng frowned slightly, and a thought flashed through his mind. Maybe the Sage King level corpses I obtained were only a part of them. Lin Feng nodded secretly. The forbidden land of the demon race might have other secret places, or these undead might have already been formed before, so they were not in the forbidden land of the demon race. There were many possibilities, but he did not have time to think about it. The demon race's attacks came wave after wave, and it seemed like they were about to extinguish the fire of the humans and ancients. Fortunately, I also have a card up my sleeve. Lin Feng's eyes widened slightly. In an instant, the shield of truth flashed, and 30 undead of different shapes and sizes opened up like a cattail leaf fan, heading in all directions. Different from the previous undead, these were truly powerful helpers that had been carefully selected. Every one of them was a Sage King level existence. The reason why he had not taken them out before was that firstly, they were hidden as a trump card, and he was also afraid of the demon race's undead. Secondly, he had just started to control the undead and was still in the process of learning. Like learning martial arts, he slowly advanced from the elementary level to the intermediate level, and then to the advanced level. Now was the time. There were more than 100 Sage King level corpses that day, and only 1/3 of them had absorbed enough death energy to resurrect. The first batch and these 30 were all of them. So. As soon as the 30 Saint King undead appeared, the entire situation immediately changed. Saint-level undead were indeed very strong, but in front of a Saint King undead, even 100 Saint-level undead might not be able to defeat a single Saint King undead. Moreover, the heavenly deities of the ancient races didn't have a large area to guard. With Lin Feng as the center, they could already control 90% of the area with the help of the human powerhouses. In addition, there was also the newly added Saint King level undead. Humanity's defensive line was instantly consolidated. Boom! The scales of war were balanced once again. More accurately speaking, they were beginning to lean towards the side of the humans and ancient. The slaughter continued, but the strength of the devil race, however, it was slowly decreasing. Everything was within his expectations. Lin Feng's previous confidence wasn't due to arrogance. Instead, it was due to the fact that the humans now had the capital to contend against the demon race after gaining such a powerful ally like the Aboriginals. The overwhelming advantage that the humans had in this battle was irrefutable proof. Even now, the Aboriginals' casualties were still in the single digits, which was a rather impressive number. One had to know that the heavenly deities of the ancient races had only sacrificed their astral source energy, but they had caused great damage to the demon race. It could be said that more than 90% of the demon race's casualties were caused by the ancient race powerhouses. The remaining 10% was caused by the human powerhouses. We've won. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He swallowed the astral fruits one by one, and his injuries were already healed. However, it was still a little difficult for his left hand to immediately recover its combat strength. However, this didn't cause his strength to decrease by much. At most, it was only 10%. If his feet were injured, it would have a huge impact on his combat strength. If his left hand was injured, he could still use his right hand to wield the spear. After continuous battles, the demon race was already exhausted. With the addition of the human powerhouses and 30 newly advanced Saint King level undead, their defensive line was impenetrable. This allowed the ancient race powerhouses to fully unleash the powerful combat strength of the heavenly deities on the battlefield. The demon race suffered heavy casualties. Not only were they at a disadvantage in terms of morale, but their military strength was also gradually decreasing like rain. Their only hope was probably the demon race commander. However, the true and false great sage was still entangled with him, and there was no clear victor. Facing the true great sage, who was focused on escaping, the gray great sage was completely helpless. "Thank you." Lin Feng looked at the agile figure in the demon race army, and a warm feeling rose in his heart. Previously, the great sage might have really come to seize the physical body. However, the first clash with the gray great sage might have caused him to change his mind. He wasn't strong enough to seize the physical body, so he chose another method, which was to entangle the false great sage. Perhaps this wasn't beneficial to him, but to the human and ancient race alliance, it was too important. If the gray great sage joined the battle, not to mention whether he could defeat him, just being entangled with him would be very troublesome. Even if the human and ancient race alliance won, it wouldn't be as easy as it was now. It could be said that they didn't shed any blood. It was precisely because of the great sage's sacrifice that they were able to achieve this great victory. Lin Feng was extremely grateful. He also knew what the great sage's intentions were. It wasn't because they had a good relationship, but because he wanted to return the favor that day. No matter what, the result was very good. Swoosh! A sharp light shot over. Lin Feng instantly sensed it. Their eyes met. From the demon race army in the distance, he could clearly see a pair of cold eyes. It was the demon race commander, the gray great sage. Countless messages were contained in his eyes. There was anger, hatred, and even a deep desire to kill. What a clear feeling! Lin Feng was secretly shocked. This was the first time he had an anxious gaze with the gray great sage. It was the first time he could clearly sense his thoughts. This opponent was not simple. The last time he saw him, he was just like the bull demon, a puppet. However, this time, he could already sense his consciousness. He felt that he was no longer a puppet. He was like an innate treasure that had an independent consciousness and complete intelligence. He had changed a lot, not only in terms of strength, but in all aspects. However, that was all. The outcome of this battle would not change. The demon race would definitely lose. Retreat! In the void, an indignant and furious roar rang out. It was the gray great sage's voice. The demon race army's morale was low. They were beaten so badly by the human and ancient race experts that they could not raise their heads. They had long lost the will to fight. Following the gray great sage's command, the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan led the demon race army to retreat. The scene was extremely spectacular. The demon race retreated just like that. They had gathered more than 50% of the demon race's battle strength for an all-out attack. However, they retreated before they could even see the appearance of the divine territory. Countless corpses and skeletons were left behind. The demon race experts had suffered a shocking number of casualties. In the end, they chose to retreat. They chose to lose. To be precise, they had no other choice. Although the ancient race heavenly gods had less than 10% of their star origin energy left, the attacks of the late-stage demon race experts had been greatly weakened. The ancient race heavenly gods took turns to rest and attack. In addition to the strong defense of the human experts, the demon race experts had no chance to make a comeback. They lost because the demon race was too arrogant. They lost because the alliance between the humans and the ancient race was too strong. The demon race's defeat was extremely heavy. Not only did the demon race lose countless saint and sage king experts, but the two demon stars, Demon Emperor Bai Yunlei and Deputy Commander Bull Demon, also lost their morale and confidence. The demon race had lost more than 30% of their battle strength. In this battle, the human casualties were only light. Although many saint-level experts died, the small spirit-gathering formation was enough to replenish them in a short period of time. As for the Sage King experts, it was a drop in the ocean compared to the demon race. Most importantly, the ancient race heavenly gods, one of the Alliance's strongest weapons, only suffered single-digit casualties. This was an impressive battle result. We won! Haha, we defeated the demon race. Long live Emperor Lin! Long live Emperor Lin! Awesome! This is 2F** King Awesome. What's there to be afraid of? We humans are the strongest! The human camp was filled with cheers. They celebrated wildly and shouted crazily. Every human expert was extremely excited. They shouted excitedly to vent the anger in their hearts. They had defeated the insufferably arrogant demon race. They had created a legend and a miracle. They had completed a mission that was almost impossible to complete. How could they not be excited? Not only the human experts, but the ancient race experts were also overjoyed. The usually arrogant heavenly gods of the ancient race hugged each other excitedly to vent the joy in their hearts. They had been waiting for this moment for far too long. They had been bullied by the demon race and abandoned by the sorcerer race. They were like bodies without souls. They watched helplessly as their homes were lost one by one. But today they had won. Everything that happened was like a dream, but it felt so real, causing their hearts to tremble. Countless heavenly deities from the ancient races had tears flowing down their faces, containing too many emotions. They couldn't control themselves. Even the ancient gods had tears in their eyes. They had done it. They had finally avenged their fallen brethren. After today's great victory, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the demon race had lost their momentum. On the contrary, the human and ancient race alliance had not lost much of their strength. They only needed to recover for a month or so to regain their strength. They might even be stronger than they were now. On the other hand, the demon race had suffered a great loss. The situation of the war of the sorcerer race had officially changed. Every heavenly god of the ancient race rejoiced that they had made the right decision. Not only were the humans extremely powerful, but they were also a relatively reliable alliance. They were much more reliable and powerful than the sorcerer race. Although they had lost the divine territory, they believed that they would be able to take back the other ancient regions that had been occupied by the demon race soon and restore order to the ancient race. In comparison, they had gained far more than they had sacrificed. Excitement and joy filled every human and ancient race expert's face. This included the ancient gods, Gu Xing, the human experts, and Lin Feng. Their faces were brimming with smiles as they enjoyed the joy of victory. This victory was irreplaceable for the human and ancient race alliance. It was an epic victory that had reversed the situation of the war of the sorcerer race. But the excitement and joy did not last for long. Just as the upper echelons of the human race were discussing this great victory and celebrating, Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. The smile on his face disappeared in an instant. He turned his head abruptly and looked into the distance. His eyes widened instantly. Chapter 1653. They were densely packed. They were countless faintly discernible auras. Others could not sense them, but Lin Feng cultivated the Panga tactic, which was the power of heaven and earth. He could merge his body with heaven and earth. In terms of sensing ability, he was much stronger than other human experts. Even if it was just a weak sense, it could not be fake. Thump, thump, thump. Lin Feng's face turned pale when he heard the clear sound of his heartbeat. He had not felt such a sense of crisis for a long time. His intuition shrouded his body once again. He sensed a huge force in the distance, and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. It was not the monster race, but it was more powerful than the monster race. The monster race has been defeated. The situation has been reversed. King Yan's eyes were burning, and his fighting spirit was endless. Yes, when the ancient race alliance recovers its strength, we can turn the tables and take down the ancient domain that the monster race has occupied. Shun was full of confidence. This victory was a shot in the arm for the human race and the ancient race alliance. It proved that the monster race was not invincible. It also proved that even without the sorcerer tribe, the human race and the ancient race could contend with the monster race. Qian Lian Huang, Jieji, Shijixin, and the others were in a good mood. Fang Ning, Xiao Jian, and Shui Yumei also smiled. The heavenly secret Saint Lord had spent a lot of effort to build the water curtain cave. Wasn't it for this moment? The human race could finally hold their heads high. Wan Macho turned to look at Lin Feng, and a glint flashed in his eyes. What's wrong, Brother Lin? As soon as he finished speaking, everyone quieted down. Their gazes gathered on Lin Feng, and when they saw his increasingly dignified expression, they felt uneasy. In an instant, Fang Ning and Wan Macho's faces changed dramatically. They turned their heads abruptly, and their eyes widened rapidly. Soon, Qian Lian Huang, Xiao Jian, and Shijixin also noticed something and could not help but exclaim. What? What happened? King Yen, King Lu, Shun, and the others trembled, and cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. Did the monster race come back? Very strong. Lin Feng finally spoke, gritting his teeth, his expression serious. Although there aren't as many demons as there are in the monster clan, each of them is an elite, especially the Saint Realm and Saint King Realm auras. There are quite a lot of them. The most terrifying one is their leader. The strength of his aura is not at all inferior to that of the demon commanders. Pung! Lin Feng's words made everything clear. Naturally, no one doubted their senses, especially when they could already sense the huge formation in the distance. The shocking killing aura seeped in, becoming more and more intense. Yellow sand billowed, covering the entire sky. One could vaguely see black figures appearing, covering the entire sky. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. God damn it! Wan Macho roared furiously, his veins bulging. What a great way to reap the benefits of watching the tigers fight from the other side of the mountain. Shun let out a long sigh. We've exhausted all our schemes, but we can't avoid it. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. Indeed, when Shun, Qian Lian Huang, and his father were discussing the situation of the war of liches and demons, they had already discovered the existence of this third force. It had been secretly accumulating strength, and they had even figured out the other party's origin. It was most likely the Tianling force that had been waiting patiently. However, this battle was initiated by the monster race, and the human and ancient alliance were passively defending. There was no way for them to retreat. Once the God Realm was broken, they would lose the small spirit gathering array, which would be a huge blow to the human race. Not to mention, it would affect the whole situation, including the morale of the ancient alliance, the trust between the alliance, and so on. Even if they knew that Ji was watching from the side, the human race couldn't avoid this battle. But I didn't expect Ji to be so decisive. Now that the monster race has only lost part of their vitality and hasn't fought with us, Ji can't hold back anymore. Lin Feng clenched his fists, his heart filled with anger. Now that Ji had appeared, the monster race was the happiest. Once any trump card was revealed, the threat would naturally be greatly reduced. Not to mention, Ji's appearance had stalled the human race and eased the monster race's situation. The situation that was originally about to be one-sided suddenly became complicated and confusing. Could it be that Ji's strength was so strong that he could casually contend with the human and ancient alliance, and was not afraid of the monster race's threat? He didn't know, but he didn't have time to guess. The enemy was at the gate. It's over. Shun closed his eyes. The joy and excitement from before had long disappeared, replaced by deep loneliness. It was as if he had aged a lot in the blink of an eye. Not only him, but all the human experts no longer had smiles on their faces. Even their fighting spirit had withered. If they were at their peak, they wouldn't be afraid. However, the human and ancient alliance had just fought with the monster race. Although they had won, every human expert was well aware of the great price they had paid. Which one of them wasn't injured? Even the strongest among them, Lin Feng, was only at 70 to 80% of his peak strength. Wan Macho's strength was less than 10%. Thorn and Shijixin were also seriously injured in order to kill the monster race's fiend star. The ones with the lightest injuries, like Fang Ning and Qian Lian Huang, had also consumed a lot of astral energy. The most tragic one wasn't the human race, but the ancient alliance. Every single ancient race heavenly deity was extremely weak right now. Their strength was less than 10%. One had to admit that Ji had chosen the best time. It couldn't be said that he was despicable or shameless, because this was war. The winner was the king and the loser was the bandit. There was no mercy to speak of. In order to win, any method would be used. No one cared about the process or whether there was a conspiracy. The most important thing was the result. What to do? Nothing could be done. No one knew better than Lin Feng how dangerous and terrifying the current situation was. The slightest carelessness could lead to a disaster for the human race. As the human emperor and the supreme commander of the ancient alliance, he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Because it would be fatal at the moment. In the distance, Ji Yunshu had been waiting for a long time. It was easy to imagine how powerful his attack would be. If they fought head-on, with the current strength of the human race and the ancient alliance, even if they could kill their way out and severely injure Ji Yunshu, so what? The human race would no longer have the strength to fight back. Not to mention clashing with the monster race, self-preservation would be a big problem. Pairs of eyes focused on Lin Feng. Every human expert trusted Lin Feng. Even Shun, Qian Lian Huang, and Fang Ning, who were proficient in strategizing, didn't have an answer at this moment. Because the war had reached this stage, it was no longer possible to rely on strategizing to turn the situation around. Advance or retreat. Right now, the choice and problem were on the table. Tick-tock, like the swaying of a bell, every human expert's heart was pounding. Lin Feng, who was in the center of everyone's attention, finally raised his head. His solemn face was filled with incomparable determination. His eyes shone brightly without any hesitation. Retreat. Lin Feng's voice was as calm as a lake. Everyone, retreat. Bring the ancient race and retreat immediately. Retreat as far as you can. I will bring up the rear here. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.